right, Brutal Planet listeners, this is Joey here. Zayo has been releasing music for almost 30 years now, right, guys? And it's just been an incredible ride as a fan. I'm sure it's been great for you guys writing music that long. And I have the privilege to sit down with Dan and Scott and talk about the new album, The Crimson Corridor. It'll be released on April 9th. And we're just going to kind of do this unofficial and kick back and talk about each song, talk about the album, music, the lyrics, things like that. Years ago, you guys did something similar to this with Travis on As the Story Grows. And I remember listening to that as a fan and just being like, wow, that's so cool to go through each song and just talk about each one. And just thank you guys so much for being willing to do this and do that for Brutal Planet. So
yeah, our pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Crimson Corridor, I had a heck of a time trying to figure out exactly how many albums Zayo has released, because there's been like re-releases and like, how do you count all that stuff? But I'm guessing this is counted as the 12th album, correct?
Yeah, I think we're just counting them as like official, original, like new music, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, it'd be 12.
Yeah, that whole re-release of All Else Failed kind of threw a wrench in this.
Yeah. Oh, it did.
So I wanted to ask you guys, is this album a result of the COVID-19 lockdowns? Did it just kind of give you guys time to do it, or was it already in the works before 2020?
Actually, some of these songs were recorded even. And then we did do some updated recording, but some of them are recorded when Well-Intentioned Virus was done.
Okay.
So like we just record, when we go in, we record as much as we have, just so we have it ready. Well, at least with the drums. So, and some of these songs didn't have the same vibe as Well-Intentioned Virus did. So we kind of just held them back. And then there were some new songs that were written, but actually the record was basically tracked and being mixed right as COVID hit. So we were hoping to have this out in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
And then when COVID hit, I think a lot of bands kind of got a little scared, because like we didn't know, you don't want to release a record and then not be able to like actually promote it or do much with it.
Right.
So when we heard, I mean, we don't tour a ton, but we did want to play. So when you hear you can't necessarily promote it with any shows, you kind of get a little scared.
Right.
But then a lot of bands took that lead and were, people are going to be home, so you should release your records so then you can have time to listen to them.
Right.
So we decided, like, here's what we're going to do. We made a definitive release date of, April of 2021, and we weren't going to break it no matter what, even if there would have been elongated things. But it looks like if things all go well, we may actually start having shows here pretty soon. Maybe in the end of the year, it'll be a little bit better. Summer seems like some places might try. So we'll see.
If you do tour, please tell me you're coming through St. Paul again.
Oh, dude, that was a
awesome
blast.
That was
awesome
one of my favorite Zayo shows ever. That was just great.
Yeah, that club was gorgeous too. So
yeah, was that with Coffin?
Yes.
That the one?
Yep.
Coffin Rock. Yeah, that was.
Yep.
Those guys were sick. I think they changed their name, but in that Coffin Rights, I believe they're called.
Okay.
I don't remember
that was bad. Yeah, they were like a
Wolf King opened up for you guys.
Yeah, and then there was like a local band called Coffin.
Oh, I must have got there later then.
And then Barrel Theory. I got to go to Barrel Theory. It's a brewery.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was a cool walk. Got to just walk around and stuff. So that was cool. Yeah, me and Jeff were talking about this. I think I finished tracking vocals in December 2019, and then when he came, he was supposed to come back to mix at that during the Code Orange show, and then that's when everything got shut down, so we couldn't even mix the record.
Okay.
But yeah, I think so. I guess I feel like I finished vocals in December, and then you just had like little acoustic stuff, I believe, or something and then that was it. So
yeah, there were little things. Then we finished it up.
I would say that the downtime, Jeff was able to do all that nuancy stuff. You know what I mean? And so there was a small kind of benefit, I guess, to maybe like kind of sitting on it and waiting. You know, we were able to do a lot of like kind of like headphone type of, you know, nuances. I didn't, I guess when I say we, I mean Jeff. But, yeah. But, you know what I mean? We collectively were able to, you know, so I guess it, you know, maybe was a blessing in disguise or something as far as.
Yeah. 2020 sucked, but the one thing that carried me through was like, all right, what bands are writing material right now? Because they got a long time, but that's crazy. You guys been sitting on it that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad though. I mean, it was a little frustrating, I guess, but it's excited for people to hear it more than anything, I guess.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I was excited when I saw the new logo, because a new logo usually means like a new chapter of Zayo is happening here. Was that intentional? You guys wanted to do a new logo, or was it just put someone else in charge of it, or how did that come about?
I think basically what we did is we talked about doing something new, even though, I mean, we'll probably never drop the Z plus or cross or whatever thing that we've always used. Like that's just too like it's such a striking image. And that, like, even that Funeral of God Zayo logo, we'll still use it. But we have been looking for a way to freshen up something a little bit. And we had a friend of ours, Chris, do some t-shirt designs for us. And I mean, we actually did kind of ask a couple of our graphic designer friends about doing a new Zayo design or Zayo logo for us. And everything we saw, just nothing grabbed us. Nothing was ever better or even like kind of comparable to what we already had. So we just nothing really grabbed us. And then Chris did that one. And we were all kind of like, wait a second, this might be actually really cool. And the way he did it was a really simple like marker, and like he actually freehanded it, and it ended up being one that all of us really, really liked. So yeah, I mean, I think the way we look at logos too, like I said, it's not going to like replace anyone, you know, it's not like, that's not going to be the new logo and that's all we use, but it's nice to have, especially with how simple our name is, 3 letters. It's kind of nice to change it up, but
it struck me. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. It's very different than what you guys have done before, you know?
Yeah. We wanted a logo to kind of like represent the kind of the feel of the record, and I think the logo definitely has like a tortured look to it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. Wasn't there something kind of similar on a flyer first, or am I wrong?
We did. Well, he might have did. I know he did a flyer poster for us.
It was one of the Black Forge 2
Yeah,
shows,
so he may actually have come up with that logo.
I have a lot of false memories. Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Then it moved into t-shirts, but he did do 2 really awesome t-shirt designs for us. And Chris is great. Like he does work for a lot of different people, and all of his work's just gorgeous.
This is Chris who?
Chris, or what is his last? I think it's Chris Smith. Yes.
Oh, okay. Because you guys had Chris McKinney do your photos and stuff, right? Or...
Oh, yeah. So, well, basically, too, what we did with that is we always, like, all of us kind of are Instagram guys that, like, I always look at like different art, and I follow a ton of different artists, and Kenny was one of the ones that like all 3 of us kind of followed but didn't really ever talk to each other about.
Okay.
And it was almost like the universe kind of just works in a weird way, because all of us were like, hey, these are some of these pictures, we really like them, and a lot of the ones we picked were all the same. So, and it was cool, because it was like we didn't really talk about it too much before it happened. And that's like, you know, when like synchronicities like that happen, man, you can't, you gotta go with them.
Yeah. I remember, I think someone sent me, and I was like, man, I love this dude. I've been following him for, you know what I mean, since I can remember. You know what I mean? So
he's from your area too, isn't he? Or
I'm not sure.
I want to say when I looked him up the other day, he was from Pennsylvania somewhere, but
yeah, I think he's more Eastern PA.
Okay.
We're like, because we're like 20, 30 minutes outside of Pittsburgh proper. So, but I think he's like more.
Well, I was just going to say, we're in like the lower, like kind of like southwestern corner.
Mhm.
and like Philly and like out that it's like the opposite. And it's like what's crazy is it's like 5-6 hours away. It's like Pennsylvania's wide.
I lived in Jersey for a year, and I remember driving across Pennsylvania, and it's beautiful, but it's a long drive.
It's long, and
it's just like, I mean, out the eastern part of the states, like, or I'm sorry, the eastern part of the states, like a different, you know what I mean, like a completely different place. Not a good or bad thing, just like I feel like geography wise, a lot of people are like, oh, Philly, you guys are like real close, and it's like, nah, it's like on the complete other side.
And even culture wise, the further east you go, the more different it gets too.
Oh, it's like half. There's like two halves of the state.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah. It's like,
well, I grew up in Wisconsin, and we had Milwaukee and Madison, and then the rest of the state. You know, so it's
well, I guess PA is kind of like that because you have like each end of the state is the more like urban, like kind of more cultural type of places, and then like you got the middle that's like a kind of like sort of backwoodsy kind of almost sort of sort of southern.
Yeah, well, technically one of the nicknames of the place where around here they call it Pennsyltucky. So because we're close to Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky's not terribly far, and then Philly's like New York City, and you know what I mean. So yeah, well, whatever.
Well, Chris Penny, when I looked him up, I'd never heard of him before, but he's got great photos. It's very unique artist and very beautiful and creepy at the same time.
Yeah, that's what we loved about him.
There was definitely the theme of the album.
Yeah,
I guess definitely.
It was about time, dude. It was about time, like pure horror kind of ventured its way into Zao stuff, because all of us are such big horror people. So
recording the album, you guys did it with Dave at the church. You did that with Well Intentioned Virus as well, right?
Yep. And pretty much everything we've done in the last, I guess, since like the kind of re-movement of recording records has been with Dave, and we have no reason to not keep staying with Dave because he's the best.
Sure.
Yeah, he had a big, and he's engineer, definitely did, like, I guess you would also say he's like a producer to a sense. I mean, at least when I worked with him a lot, we did a lot of him and I did a lot of collaboration on vocal, you know what I mean? Trying to kind of break out of a little bit of the mold of my older phrasings. He was very helpful, and just had a lot of like constructive criticism and positive ideas and stuff, and so I mean, there's that as well as just him being an excellent engineer. You know what I mean? He's also somebody you can sit down and talk through with your ideas, and he has good suggestions and so on and so forth. So yeah, he definitely was a integral part of this record. I feel like more than just like the guy recording your record. He's also
I've never recorded a record, so I don't know how much fun it can be, but
it can be so much fun and the biggest pain in the ass of all time. It's like the best and worst thing at the same time.
Yeah, it's incredibly stressful as well. You know what I mean?
It's like raising kids.
Yeah.
You guys are making a baby, so
yeah, and it's like it's worth it, but it's you know what I mean. And I enjoy the writing, and then the recording is just like. I do like recording, but it's just like when you're standing there doing it, it's cool. Like thinking about, you know what I mean? Just like preparing, and I'm gonna I over prepare and just keep, whatever. So I stress myself out is what I should say.
I know Jeff's in New York. Where does Russ live?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, Dan. We're gonna probably do this all night.
I know. That's okay.
Russ moved back, so he lives actually in Pittsburgh. He was living in Huntington Beach, and then he found some work out here, so he moved back. So like we're pretty much all four of us are here, and then Jeff's the only guy that's in Brooklyn. But now with him just being the one away, it's only like a 6-7 hour drive, so it's not as bad.
Yeah, because I was wondering if you guys recorded. Some bands during the quarantine and stuff, they were recording online, sending stuff or whatever. If you guys did this a while back, did Jeff then travel to the area to record, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, Jeff was here. We did everything in studio.
cool.
Yep. And Jeff's from here, and his parents live here. Right? You know what I mean? So it's more than, it's not like just he has to just come back for that.
Yeah.
It's usually kind of like a couple birds with one stone type of deal. You know what I mean? Or I remember when he did drums, he was back for Christmas the one year, I believe. Like he came back he came back to visit his family for Christmas and popped in and did drums over a period of a few days. And that's when it was at like Tree Lady too.
Yeah. That was when they were a different area.
Prior to being in the church or whatever. They're like in an old church now. They used to be, it was just a building. I don't know. The old building didn't have anything, whatever. It was just a building.
Yeah.
But.
And shout out to Jeff, by the way, because I reached out to him and told him who I was, and wanted to review the album or whatever. And he sent me the files, not knowing me from Adam. And he trusted me with that. And I just love the way he interacts with fans on Facebook and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We try to, I was going to say, we try to constantly let Jeff know that we appreciate his work. And usually if we do a run of shows at the end, we'll embarrass him and be like, hope you like this guy, because if it wasn't for him, you know what I mean?
Is he like the band dad? Does he like kind of make things run? And
he's sort of like turned into the guy that like kind of is the engine of everything we do, he like all the stuff we do live and getting everything together with a label. Like he's really such an unbelievably integral part to everything we do. And that's what I love about, because like all of us too, like our aesthetics kind of the same. So like this, like how you talked about him just setting out the files, like, as a band, we've always made that a thing where like, I don't care if it's a kid he's doing a student like project to review our record. We'll listen to every single person, because throughout our whole career as the band, there have been times where we would have people that were like nobody that would reach out to us, and we would always be happy to involve them and talk, because eventually you just never know. Right. I mean, there was a dude, his name's Lars, and we were, he sent out, he wanted to review a record, and he was working for, I don't even know if it was like for college or whatever it was. And Lars now runs the like heavier music portion of NPR. So, not even that's not why we, I'm not waiting for the guy to be famous. Like we're all just such basic, normal people that, I never would want to like, we'll never look at it that way. Like anybody that asks, anybody that's even interested in what we do, we're going to be happy to oblige them.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was thinking back earlier today. The first time I met you, Scott, was at Cornerstone, like early 2000. Like, I don't remember what it was, but I was just a scared little teenager when I saw you. I couldn't even get words out, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's Scott from Zayo. And now just to be able to hang out with you guys and help promote the album with Brutal Planet and stuff, it's really neat. So
wow, I was good, right? I was nice. I wasn't a turd or anything.
You were nice. I was there like, a teenager just starstruck. Oh my gosh, it's Scott.
Well, and I'll tell you what, like I do that, and it's such a weird thing, because it weirds me out to even think that anybody thinks of me that way at all. So thank you. But yeah, there's so many people that I'm like so like just inspired by, that like doing that to them. And I've done that myself, but wow, no, that's awesome. I'm glad.
Well, it's fun. As you age, you realize, well, the world's smaller than you think, and
oh, dude, it is.
Everyone's a normal dude, and stuff.
That's it. Like everybody's. I mean,
when you're a kid, it's just like, oh my gosh.
I was probably like 400 pounds heavier too, so that's kind of a bummer.
Well, I don't remember that. I'm probably 400 pounds heavier.
Yeah, same. It's all right.
Well, should we get into some of the songs? Or you guys got
let's
anything
do
else?
it.
All right. Into the Jaws of Dread, song number 1.
When
I heard the first 3 notes, I'm like, that tone reminds me of Liberate, and it just seemed like you guys were bringing back some level of nostalgia with this new record. I don't know, it just gave me that vibe. And instrumental track, I heard like kids playing in the background. It was like this kind of beautiful, kind of creepy intro to the album. And just wondering what you guys, well, Chris from Under Oath worked on some of that, right?
Yeah, actually, all of that ambient noise that you hear behind all the music is Chris. We have been, Chris especially, like, I mean, we've known all the Under Oath guys since the beginnings of our band.
Yeah.
But Chris has always been one of those guys that, and I think any band you would ask this to, like, Chris is just one of those guys he's just one of the nicest, most authentic people that I've ever met. And I mean, they're pretty, a big band now. And Chris is exactly the same as he was when I met him and they were playing in front of 10 people to like playing in front of hundreds and thousands of people now.
Yeah.
He's just such an awesome guy. He's always been such a big supporter. Like like we're all fans of each other, but he's, definitely always been a fan of the band and always has asked if he could ever help anything or any of that kind of thing. And I was so excited that, we felt like that first track needed something else. And Chris was like the only guy I could think of that would do what he did. And exactly what he did was perfect for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's so weird to think like, I think I don't even like back to what you were saying, how it kind of has sort of it's reminiscent of sort of Liberate. I think the thing with Liberate that has always been intriguing to me, not that I was trying, because I'm more of a look forward guy. So like, I'm not going to want to revisit or rehash anything we've done in the past, but I definitely want to always be observant of like where you come from. And I think what we did with Liberate that was always so interesting to me is doing an opening for your record, to me, always feels like, certain records can be like just a bunch of burner songs and you're like making this just record to kick people's ass and it is what it is. And then sometimes you're making a record to almost have a cinematic view. So like you have the ups and downs and it tells a story from the beginning to the end. Not that the record is like a concept, but that your record, like, even just the textures and the music, like tell a story from the beginning to the end. And I feel like Liberate was one of those records that had, that opening really set a stage for like, you kind of dark things, right? Mm-hmm. Dark things are about to happen and dark things are coming. And I felt like we had this song and we did actually try to throw some vocals here and there in it just to see if that would work, if we could turn it into just like a normal song. And it never worked that way. It always worked more as like a just an instrumental piece. And we felt like if we did kind of do that whole like cinematic idea where the first song can be this opening track to like where the record's going to go. And I do think too, like when we did Liberate, we were still learning how to do stuff. So you didn't really have a good, a lot of the stuff that happened on that record were happy accidents and a lot of things weren't like really worked on like how we do now, because of just age and learning how to do all that stuff. So like, I feel like with this new thing, it's like a better representation of what we were trying to do with that record.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, that intro with the kids, it was just like, wow, this is kind of cool, but it's creepy because I know what's coming the rest of the record. Even though I haven't even heard it.
Yep. Yeah, it starts you on that journey, which is why I love Dan's name for that. I think that is it's such a beautiful name for that song.
Yeah. Me and Jeff went back and forth on that a lot, actually. Because it's technically a line from the Crimson Corridor, actually.
All right.
And we were just like, man, we're like just pulling something else out of, somewhere else in the record and like starting it. And it's just like, it's just like a perfect, because I feel like the record is like, you're walking into the mouth of this, like, You know, I don't know. It's cool. I get a lot of visuals from it. I think it's awesome, man. I'm excited. And then it goes from like the most, you know, actually my favorite part in that song is when it first gets heavy and there's that like weird drawn out scream thing. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. It's just what it sounds like to me, but yeah. And it does, like you said, it sets the stage. It's like, uh-oh, you know, it's like, it's coming. And then it launches into like the heaviest song on the record, you know, or at least the most like upbeat, you know, tempo wise or whatever you want to, you know what I mean? Which is a cool like juxtaposition right off the bat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love it.
And, yeah, that was awesome. So I've been listening to it, you know, just in anticipation, and it's great, man. It's like, I don't like to start the record past it. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, like, you know what I mean? So it's cool.
So Dan, you said transitions right into Ship of Theseus.
Yep.
I'm not as up on Greek mythology as I should be, but when I looked up what Ship of Theseus was,
you're like, that's there.
So, like, here again, I don't want to guess what your lyrics are per se, but that one seemed obvious to me, and it was just a brilliant concept for a song.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a couple of years. That was an idea I had a couple of years ago, and I was just like, I think we talked about it in the van or something. I'm like, the Theseus thing is so crazy, and because we get, I don't think there's ever going to be a time when random person's going to come up and be like, you guys aren't Zayo, or like, this isn't Zayo, or whatever. And I can honestly say it doesn't bother me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
when there was a couple times in the past when Blood and Fire came out, and then I believe we might have had a talk of Liberate, like maybe we should change our name. And I mean, Jesse, and to me, this makes sense. He was like, especially when Blood and Fire came out, he said, hey man, you know, we worked really hard to get this name out. And it's not like today where there's social media and stuff. This was like the only way to get your name in someone's ears was to like physically go out and play shows and festivals, you know, and, be on a label and whatever. Right. And he was just like, you know, I worked with, you know, we pertaining more to, you know, like Splinter Shards era, worked really hard on like building this name. And I was fine with that. But that just gets fun. It gets into the question, well, when wasn't it Zayo anymore? You know what I mean? Like, was it when Sean quit or Roy quit or Mick quit or when this guy came in, or was Blood and Fire Zayo? You know what I mean? Like, right. We were talking the other night. I honestly think the coolest thing is that we are good friends with everybody now. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like, hey, let's go be good friends for this, like whatever. It was just like over time, just like reaching out and everything. So it's just kind of an ode to all that, you know what I mean? And just like a brief, and not only does it talk about that, but the other thought is, and this is kind of hard to explain, but I always joked and said like, it's like Zayo was its own entity that like picked the people that were in it over the years. And you know what I mean? It was like, and it was this thing, it was like, if it wanted you to be in it, you can't get out, you know what I mean? And like, so it's kind of a mix of those two ideas, a mix of like the idea of being like, you know,
well, for a while, it was like that some kind of monster Metallica thing.
Yeah.
It was like this thing that's happening and swallowing some people up and spitting others out. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's and it's crazy, man. It's just like this. Yeah. It's like if it's like a muse or a you know what I mean, or some sort of thing that's like where it's hands and it's mouthpiece and it's, you know what I, you know. And I always found that interesting. So it's like two just neat ideas, just kind of like put together. You know what I mean? I can say about the whole thing on lyrically on this record is it's not that there isn't stuff that like was meaningful and so on and so forth, but I had fun like writing this. And I mean that in the sense of like writing for the sake of writing, like creating stories and like, you know, just weird little things like that. Like I'm going to write, you know, work on a song about just like all the pieces of Zayo and how it's its own entity and thing, you know what I mean? And you know, and there's a lot of little kind of like Easter eggs in it, you know, like there's like little nods to past records and things just in, I would have to break. It's like a long breakdown, but you know what I mean? But it's always been my favorite Paradox. I thought Paradoxes were cool just in the sense of like, something I don't know, like I like just sit around and think or whatever. Yeah. So it's just like it's it's a cool idea. And then I guess we lucked out because all kinds of television shows started talking about it right when the song came out. Because I remember being like, oh, it's this like eclectic thing that maybe some people will look up, or
Right.
And I'm like, cool. We get into like old Greek paradoxes. They're awesome. You know what I mean? They're fun to like sit around and really kind of make you think, and so on and so forth. And then like was it WandaVision, and then I saw there was another show that they talked about it on. I can't remember the name, but it was just like it was a few days ago. So.
Wow.
Kind of got, and once again, synchronicity. It was like, I guess, cool. You know what I mean? So, and
brilliant idea. I shared it with my wife, and she doesn't care about heavy music, so she's like, "Yeah, that's cool." Okay. Like, no, it's really cool.
Yeah, no, that's I think we're all in that boat. So if it makes you feel better, you know what I mean? So, but and it was just a fun song, just. Like I said, it's I don't want to say it's lighthearted, but there's nothing like heavy going on. It's more just about, just something kind of, and like I said, this record was just like I guess the one thing I always try to hold myself to, or it's the opposite, is never try to force myself to write about certain things. Like, okay, I always have to write about like this or that, or, have to write about, So it was kind of like, approaching this kind of more open-minded and, I guess letting it write itself a little bit, if that makes any sense. So,
and you had fun doing it.
Yeah.
So Scott, I might not be as good at asking music questions either. So please feel free to interject with anything cool about writing with music and stuff. But
I'm actually I love listening to Dan's like lyrical stuff.
Well, we're gonna go through all the lyrics and stuff, but I might not ask cool guitar questions. So. I know. Well, I'm interested, but I know a lot of listeners would be very interested in some of that stuff too. So if you have anything, just chime in, please.
Yeah, I mean, with this, I think I wanted because a lot of the time what we'll do, like music's usually written and then it goes to Dan. So Dan will have like tons of lyrical ideas and I like all that stuff. So then he gets to take the songs as like puzzles and figure out how he's going to fit. So my intention was that I wanted to write a song that was super violent sounding. I wanted it to just like, if you heard the song, just like how like 5 Year Winner sort of does that, and like Savannah does that, and Rising End does that. I wanted to write a violent song that, if you weren't in your right mind, you'd put your fist through your windshield, right? So, but and that's it. I mean, dude, I just wanted it to be. I knew that Jeff his abilities are like able to like, we haven't even touched probably what he can do. So I was like, I'm going to make him go faster than he's ever went on his feet. and then like, I just wanted to do, so we like with Zayo now, I mean, a lot of the guitar work, I have come up with like 3 differently distinct like tuning that we use for like throughout a lot of the last couple things. And Ship of Theseus is one of them that has like a weird tuning to it. And I came up with just some like really nice like chord structures that have kind of gross, but like also like energy to them. And then the little breakdown area at the end of the song, like there's some Every Time I Die songs that have like this kind of one note bendy thing that they do a lot. And I just love it. Like Andy and Jordan do such sick stuff. And I was just totally inspired by like some of their, like this little, like kind of one note sort of like breakdown stuff that they do. I mean, almost every one of their records has some unbelievable breakdown that's like super simple, but like just murders you. So I wanted to have a breakdown that would make Andy Williams proud.
Wasn't that? And you did. I hope.
I would imagine. Maybe he probably doesn't. I don't know if he'll ever even listen to him. But hey, if he does and he says, Scott, that's a good riff, I'll be like, thank you, sir. Thank
you. Dan, you write the lyrics exclusively, or do you guys collaborate on it, some things?
I read most of them, I guess. And I'm open to sometimes, like, people have ideas like, what about this or that? Actually, my favorite thing Scott ever wrote on this record. And what's it called? Lost Star, correct? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
But yeah, I mean, I'm also open. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the one cool thing about doing this is like we do what we do, and if someone approaches me or like anyone else about like, hey, this would be cool, or that would be cool, it's like we'll try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, what's really awesome too with Dan is like every time we do anything, like I'll sort of like offer up possible like singing parts. I try really hard to make them interesting. I usually stay away from just doing chorusy parts. I kind of like doing weirder parts here and there. And what I'll do is I'll do them and I'll like sometimes write kind of words for them, or sometimes just make up kind of weird words just so like he could hear the melodies. And then if I do write words, I'll be like, I'll give them to Dan and he'll make them so much better. so there might be some like a little bit of, I'll like sprinkle in my stuff and then Dan gets to like put the special sauce in there.
Yeah. What's is it I saw The Devil. That was a cool one of those when we did the very end. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, and I actually enjoy when someone's like, here's like a rough framework for something, and then I'll take the melodies or like hit the same syllables on the end of certain words. Like he might have said a different word, but it ends in the same, like an E or a Y, or you know what I mean, and do that. And a lot of times it's just so it integrates into the song well. Sometimes it's not even necessarily that the lyrics themselves or whatever. You know what I mean? It just maybe I've already written something that doesn't make sense directly the same, so it's like you tweak it to. Whatever, but outside of that, I have a lot of framework stuff, and then when I start getting music, like I have a lot of like one lines or titles or a paragraph, and then it's once again it's kind of like they write themselves a little bit. I hear the songs, and I'll sit there with a bunch of lyrics, and you know something jumps out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's
Scott,
usually how.
You got like a lot of clean vocals on this record, but it's not. It's still super heavy. Like it's a super heavy record, but yet there's a lot of cleans on it.
Yeah. I think, and I love how we've done them because there's a lot of clean vocals on them on the record, but I think where they're placed separates it because I think, like I was saying, like a lot of people they would be like, okay, well, if we're going to have clean vocals, you want to have that big chorus where the chorus is here. But I like
Funeral God type kind of stuff. Like Funeral God's a good example of like big chorus kicks in and there's like screaming of vocals together or just vocals,
which is great. But this was better in my opinion.
Well, I like too like how like they'll be like I try really hard to kind of use my singing parts as just another instrument. So there'll be songs where like I'll do a little part at the end or a little part in the beginning, or you know, or like I've never done this before. I was so excited about Croatoan because it was the first time I did a lot of vocal parts, even though there's not a ton of words, but like there's a lot of singing, but I did verses because a lot of the time, you know, we have like kind of like more the heavy verses and then you do the singing chorus, but I really, really try to make it more interesting and stay away from that like singy chorus thing. Cause unless it really works, like if there's something that works really awesome and you just like, you hear it and you're like, yeah, you got to do that. Like, then we'll do it. But because like there was a song or two on Well-Intentioned Virus that had like singing in the chorus, but me and Dan were doing it at the same time, but it really it worked so well that I wasn't going to shy away from it if it works really good. But I try really hard to kind of stay away from that. And I really want Dan to be like such a centerpiece to it. And I think that's what makes always bummed me out about the singing choruses, because it's like, I want what Dan's doing to be like the main memorable thing. I don't want like me coming in and singing a chorus and then that's what people hear, because the choruses are what you're going to focus on in a song. So I would rather have like a collaborative thing where like where the singing is more of just like a texture.
It's great. I love it.
And Scott is also 90 million times better at me than at writing like clean, pretty part melodies. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's because of guitar. You know what I mean? I feel I'm always like, that's better than anything I would have ever come up with in a million years. So I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so yeah, that's why I think it works. You know, I think that's why it's always worked well. Just let everybody do what they, you know, kind of do what they want. And I feel like we're all pretty honest and critical with each other too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As well. But it's constructive. It's not just like saying, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like that. It's like, you know, what about this? What about that? But that's what all the records have been like for at least since we started doing stuff with Dave. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's kind of like you get a little bit of everybody and everything, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to just like isolated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just everyone's like doing their own things and kind of without inside interpretation or integration. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So track number 3, Croatoan. Dan?
DW.
Well, this song's weird. It's because it links into, like I said, I recently I wrote out a little article where it's like the song is really nothing to do in the sense with the actual you know, history surrounding the word, as far as it's not a song about, you know what I mean, like, you know, the Roanoke or anything like that. The song's about technically, let's try to explain as quick as possible, but if I always had terrible anxiety and I get a lot of detachment stuff where like this is gonna sound weird, like I feel like I'm outside of myself, spectating myself, as opposed to like being in my body, and it's really hard to explain. Not that I'm not in control, but I feel like I'm like half outside my body sometimes, like watching myself on some weird autopilot do things. And then that's kind of how this song started. That's why the first line is here but not here. It's like, you know what I mean? It's just like this feeling of like, you know, I'm here but I'm not. I'm like half outside my body just watching. And then torn from the axis is just something about just being like just not like on the proper rotation or like orbit, like just being off and like feeling off and knowing that I'm off. And then
I was thinking that opening line was talking about the historical event, because
I know, well,
they're somewhere, but they're not here.
Yeah, and it ties in, and I guess that's what's cool. You know what I mean? And then, and then the, you know, and then so it kind of parallels. You know what I mean? Like, I also wrote the song during Twin Peaks season 3, so I was like, there was a lot of weird stuff going on in my head. And just you know, a lot about like dreams and the dreamers, and you know what I mean, and like things being off, and you know, moving from one dream into another, and just like being in this odd place, and I think a lot of that reverts back to just like, to me, a feeling of anxiety and anxiousness and like not being in control and things like that. And yeah, and then like I said, I wrote something out for a magazine, but to me, the word the Croatoan to me is like pure helplessness. It's like you have these people that just disappeared, and then you have this word and nobody knows what it means or where it came from or what it was implying. And to me, that's just like the ultimate like helpless thing. You know what I mean? Like some, you know, I mean, who knows what happened, but if some person had a few minutes to just do one thing and they write this word and it's like nobody knows what it is or what they were trying to say or anything. And I've read everything. It's speculated. So there was like a Native American tribe that had a similar name close by to, you know, to other things too. I believe I even, as I was like, you know, reading through things, like I believe like there was some old demon name that was similar. You know how there's like Beelzebub and all those type of names. Like there's a Croatoan like type thing, and so that song overall is just about like, I guess, just mystery and feeling lost. And I'm sorry, I don't know. It's weird, man. I kind of was just like, that's what I mean. This record, I was just like, you know,
I'm trying to figure out what Scott's laughing at too.
My wife is making me laugh.
I thought it might have been your wife or your dog or something. You're looking over and trying to hold back.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. She saw it. I got hit.
But you know, I don't know. And I actually like I know, but I like that song a lot. My favorite part of the whole song is just the Croatoan part. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's just a bizarre, just kind of like hopeless mystery, I guess. You know what I mean? And I don't know. So
I think
I had a
my favorite part was when Scott, I'm assuming it's you doing this little riff thing, and then it hits "Pulled from a Dream."
yeah.
That hit, I did not see that coming the first time I heard the song, and I was, whoa, that hit hard.
Awesome. That's actually, yeah, I remember when I had the idea for the end before anything. So like, you know, there's, I mean, so much cool stuff going on in heavy music. So, but I always like those little like pull off things. I did them in 5 Year Winter, like
Right.
all that kind of stuff. So came up with that riff and I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to record that and we'll find a place for it. And then I started writing the other part of that song. And I was like, one, I love how like dirgy and sludgy and just how slow moving this is. But if I don't do something in this song that awakens it sometime, it's just not going to hit. There's like, because I want that slow dirge stuff to like really be impactful. But I think like, especially with everything we do, you know, I'm always thinking of like the dynamic of what we can do in a song. So like, you know, you always want to have your like your chill out parts, you know, whatever you're going to do dynamically. It's always fun to work with that like really big difference. And sometimes it could sound really off and not work. And I remember when that song, I got to that point and then I pulled this riff back from like other recordings and I put them together and I was just like, I just got goosebumps. So I think we'll be okay. And yeah, like but I love like, so that riff, I mean, it's one of my favorite ones on the whole record, but even the beginning of that song, like all the cool, like just slow, like those chords and just the way that whole beginning is, I loved it. And I was like, I want to make sure that because if you do that too much, then it's just not as cool. Because if the whole song would have just been that, it would be cool for a little bit. And then by the time you do it again, it would have been like, okay, well now it's not even like slow or dirgy anymore. It's just like up again. It's the same thing. So I really think that those two pieces of the song, even though it works so good as one thing, the two pieces like totally save each part of the song.
And I will give Dave, actually, I'll give him props. Well, we worked a lot on that Pulled from a Dream part, you know, with the guitar, like, just where like, because I had it where it came in like it wasn't it when it came in, it was like the vocals initially came in a little later. So that was a specific part. I remember he had a lot of, we sat down and worked on it. And,
because it felt like it should come in just like a second or two later.
Yeah.
And it just hit hard right away, you know, and it was, wow, that.
And he has patience. I'd be like, I'd do it and I'd miss it. And he'd be like, oh, do it again. It'd be like, take 7. I'm like, Dave, I'm so sorry, man.
I love because I've been down there a couple times when Dan records, and Dan is like the sorry master. Like he's so sorry all the time. Man. And Dave's just like, do it again. It's okay. Sorry, man. Just do it again. Yeah. It's okay. And then you'll do it. You'll be like, this is the best one I've ever done. Do it again.
All right. Number 4, Final Ghost. Now, I like bird watching in nature, but I have a feeling that's not what this song is about.
Actually, so what's weird is this song is before I moved at my old house. This goes back to just having fun writing. Every year at my old house, I had this giant oak tree in the corner of my yard, and every year when it would get nice out, this hawk would try to take over. And I remember sitting on the porch watching these robins chase this hawk away, and you could see them fly up and like peck at him. Yep. And the one year the hawk screamed, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it just, I mean, and then the other part of the beginning of the song is when I used to live, I was driving, and there's some like neighborhoods behind where I lived, and the roads, they're not back roads, but they're not heavily traveled. And I was driving home, and I came to a 4-way stop at like a little street, not like a main 4-way. And there was a mother rabbit and a little tiny rabbit that was like not much bigger than like a hamster. And there was this massive, I don't know if it was a crow or raven. I assume it was a, raven, but this raven was like pecking, trying to grab this little rabbit, like pecking at it. And the mom was just like freaking out. And I literally stopped. I was in the middle of the four-way, stopped watching it. And I didn't want to take my eyes off it because I was just so enamored with what was going on. And I was feeling around on my passenger seat for my phone. Like this is like so amazing. And eventually the bird grabs this rabbit by some scruff, the smaller baby, and it maybe flapped its wings once or twice and got a little bit off the ground. And the mom jumped up and just like bit into it. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? And both of those stories stuck with me from that house. And I guess the idea of this song, it starts with that. And then it was just an inspiration to like keep writing. You know what I mean? Sure. And that song really takes a weird shift into like the second half of it. But I guess the general idea is that like the first thing was like, I'm always for like the underdog. So I guess that's like the beginning of the story. Like, to me, the idea of like robins chasing a hawk away is awesome. And like, this rabbit like overcoming it is just cool to me. Just like kind of like nature. And I guess it like, there's like a parallel to a lot of things in that. But then the second part is about like, I was just thinking about how like everyone always thinks, animals and this are like kind of like a lower whatever. But then I was just thinking like in the end, they're the ones that are going to be around. You know what I mean? Like not us. And that's like my favorite line in that is the birds will build nests with your hair and bones. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, that's cool.
And then sometimes just like writing gets me thinking. And then so I started thinking about like, it gets into like, so I don't know where these shifts happened necessarily, but the end of the song starts getting into like what's your reason for surviving? What's your reason for like staying alive? And my answer for a lot of that is the fear of death. You know what I mean? More so than anything, as opposed to just wanting to generally be alive. I feel like more people are scared, stay alive out of the fear of dying than they do out of just wanting to be alive. You know what I mean? They're like, I don't really want to be alive, but I'm like terrified of dying. So that song gets into that. And then it gets into some of the idea of like the smaller, the underdog winning. You know what I mean? The idea being of like, I imagine this like super rich person being the last person to make it. Like, all right, I made it. I beat everybody. Like I stayed alive like longer than anybody, but it's like the idea of like, what is that worth? If you're just by yourself, you have no one to talk to, you know what I mean? And then the idea of them being I get to be the final ghost, the last person to ever die, you get this like title. So once again, that it started with the idea of the story with the robins and the hawk and the rabbits. And then it kind of just, I guess it inspired itself in a weird way. You know what I mean? And it just got into all these weird ideas of like, like underdogs and like surviving and all these things. And just kind of the idea of survival in and of itself, not necessarily being this like great achievement, if it's not like worthy of, the task it takes to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, stuff too.
That's interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen my Instagram page or whatever, but a lot of my photos are nature and stuff. And when I saw that song, I'm like, wow, does Dan like bird watching too, or what? Like he's describing nature perfectly.
Yeah, I did. I had this. I used to live in this house, and I had a really nice. We had a really cool front porch, and I actually had a massive cemetery across the street from me. I mean, it was like bigger than a football field. And there's it's an old road, so there's a lot of really old trees. Yeah, we just had this old oak, and I actually saw a robin kill a squirrel once. Wow. These squirrels kept coming up, and they just kept dive bombing it. And then after the whatever time, I was like, that squirrel didn't get back up. And then it went up, picked it up. It was dead. I was like, so we had these like wild robins. And then I learned, so I try to Google, but my favorite is, I was like, what is a group of robins called? They're called a round. I never knew, And as I was like, I learn as I write.
Do you know what a group of crows is called?
A murder.
A murder.
Yeah.
Murder.
I know that 'cause I saw a T-shirt the other day. It was like one crow and it said attempted murder. You know what I mean? like hang out. But yeah, the Final Ghost is like I don't know. I mean, that's one of my favorite songs musically on the record. I love those like mid-tempo crushers. You know what I mean? Just like it has such like.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty violent song. It's just not as like fast and violent. It's
Right,
more like.
right.
Like it's like the rate of like stabbing somebody, you know what I mean? It's just like,
With a spoon.
yeah. And I was just like, and then the end is, the end is pretty like upbeat. And so just something to like, it's just kind of like, once again, and that's a lot of this whole record is exactly that, man. Just start writing and let it write itself and just enjoy the process. And this sounds weird, but a lot of the heavier stuff, I feel like I've said what I've had to say, if that makes any sense. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to force myself to quit saying certain things or whatever. And so that was just a fun one. Just like some kind of like let nature kind of dictate some commentary on like social commentary based off of like things you've seen in nature, I guess is kind of like the idea of the song,
Well, I think when you're younger, you have a lot of angst and anger yourself, right? Like, and that comes out in your earlier stuff. But now as you're getting older, and you guys both have kids, right? And you just kind of chill out a little bit more. But yet, if you look around in nature, violence is still happening all the time.
Yeah. I think the best way I've tried to sum this up is like you don't really have a way or like a good way. When you're younger, you don't have the facilities to understand how to like use your anger, which is awesome about being in a band, because then you can like channel that anger, right? So being angry as a young person, you have all this angst, you want to yell, want to do all that stuff. The older you get doesn't mean you're less angry. It just means that you know how to like handle that anger.
Right.
And you know how to like do things with that anger. And the older I fear that the older I get, I will eventually start killing human beings because I think when I was younger, I was a little more worried about get in trouble. But I think, like the human race there's so much about the human race that just disgusts me more and more every day. And I'm like, I think honestly, I'm more angry now than I've ever been in my life. But as being older, one, I'm just too tired. But I I seriously feel like I'm angrier now, but I can channel it better than I did when I was younger.
Right.
I feel similar. You know what I mean? The one thing that's helped me mellow out, and this is like off subject, is I've learned to like, I don't take a lot of stuff personally anymore. I feel like when you're young, you take everything personally.
Yep.
Like, you're driving down the road and someone's slow in front of you and you're like, you're making me late for work. Why are you making me late? It's just like that person doesn't care that you're behind them. It has nothing to do with you. Right. And I really feel like in a lot of life, I feel like when you're young, you take everything personally. Yep. You know what I mean?
Good point.
And then you get older and you're just like, and the reason is you start seeing things from the other side. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, when I was doing that today, it had nothing to do with that person. I was just like angry or like I was stressed out with work. I slept for 3 hours last night, or you know what I mean? Right. And you start seeing like, oh, maybe that person the other day, maybe they were in the same boat, But then, I still doesn't mean I'm not angry. It's just like, it's learned to take it not as personal, but I get angry about other stuff. And
I like, or you get wise on what you feed yourself too.
Yeah.
I've shut the news off. I don't know how many times. I don't even follow it anymore because it just
you can't. Yeah, you gotta cleanse yourself of all that kind of stuff. It's too much.
And you only have so much mental space, and it's like you have a finite amount of like whatever, and it's just like you have a choice of what you put into that finite space.
Yeah.
And I've chosen to, you know what I mean?
Well, someone mentioned to me a while back, they're like, we weren't meant to consume as much stuff as we do nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Like with social media and stuff. Like we can't handle it. And it's no wonder we're seeing a rise in depression and anxiety and all that. It's like we're doing it to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
No, I agree 100%. That's and the one thing I'm thankful for all the time is I got to grow up in. I mean, even just like the idea nowadays, like everyone has a video camera in their pocket. Like I'm glad I got to like be an idiot when I was young and not get videotaped.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be here if some of the stuff I did when I was young was videotaped. It was like, it'd be terrible. I don't think any of us would.
It'd be miserable.
And I mean, there's the benefits. It's cool. Like, to do all this stuff, but in the end, I mean, and it's not modern kids' fault. You know what I mean? It's just like, people complain about how they just stare at their phones. Be like, when we were 10, if people put phones in our hands, guess what? We would have been staring at our phones.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like,
well, look what happened look when Nintendo came out. Everybody, it's just because Nintendo wasn't there doesn't mean like kids need like that kind of like interaction is like drugs,
so it is.
Yeah,
man, I sat in my room playing video games many a night. You know what I mean? It was just bigger than a phone is all. You know what I mean?
That's it.
It's like
I need to freaking clean the games out and blow it. Kind of sucks.
Yeah. And then my mom.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan.
My mom turned my Sega Master System off because you couldn't save back then.
Oh, that's right.
I was like 20 some hours into this game called Zillion, and I came back from school. I'm like, Mom, why is my Sega off? She's like, I was wiping it down, and the red button turned. I was like, Mom, that was like 2 weeks of progress. You know what I mean? It's like
did you ever write a Zayo song about that? Or
we need to.
I mean, I'm still alive, so if we can. I'm just kidding.
We need to write a song about how I've never beaten Adventures of Link.
Oh,
dude, I can't.
Really? That's hard. The game's hard, though.
Dude, I've never beaten Ganon. I've never been able to get to him, or I've gotten there and I just die. But I'm trying to think of like musical stuff about Final Ghost. Oh, okay, yeah. There's a really cool thing. So, like Dan was saying, coming up with like a mid-tempo crusher is super fun, and a lot of like. I think a lot of the music that all of us liked growing up was like a lot of mid-tempo kind of crushers, like Master of Puppets. That's not like all fast. I mean, you have like Leper Messiah and like Thing That Should Not Be. Those things are like kind of like mid-level or mid-tempo kind of crushing songs. But the one thing about Final Ghost that was really important to me, and I don't know why, I just, for some reason, as a guitar player, your favorite thing's doing a palm mute. If anybody says they don't love palm muting, they're lying to you. Palm muting is like the coolest thing ever, and everybody loves it. And I love it too. But I was like, how could I make this crunch part not palm muted? I want it to sound more like I'm taking the guitar and smashing it on the wall. I don't want it to sound like, because a palm mute sounds so good, but it's not violent. It wasn't violent enough. Mm-hmm. So if you listen to the chugs in that like main verse part of Final Ghost, it's like 5 guitars and I'm just holding the strings and smashing the strings. So it's not like it's not a palm mute. It's like a weird pick, like scrape with like
doing like a Tom Morello kind of thing.
Yeah, like a thunk. So I wanted it to be like more of like this just violent type of thing. And I hope it comes across to people as like, because you know how it is, man. Like in your brain, you're like, oh, I'm going to do this super cool thing. And then everybody's like, that's not really any cooler than a palm mute was. So I'm hoping, please, I hope people pay attention and realize it's not a palm mute and it's cool.
Well, I'm sure the guys that are really into guitar will notice much better than the guys who don't play, but.
Well, no, I know what's going to happen. Like we'll go out finally when we're able to tour, and some dude will be like, "That's like the coolest palm mute I've ever heard." I'm like,
you'll get like a letter from the Palm Mute Society for like an introduction. Yeah,
we'd like you to come and teach a class.
And then they'll be like, and then you'll say, well, I wasn't really palm muting, and then they just like won't ever respond to any of your messages ever again.
They'll like tear up my valedictorian thing right in front of me.
Remember when what was it? Remember when Sinead O'Connor tore up the picture of the Pope? Like,
yeah, that'll be my like honorary palm mute lesson king. Or, what would that be like? Palm mute professor. The palm muting professor.
I have a good nickname for you. You could be the Palm Mutant, dude.
I love that. The Palm Mutant. Dude, that's actually what we're gonna call that anytime. Every time we do it now.
Yeah. He's just a palm mutant. I don't know.
I like it.
I had a long week, man. I'm like in a weird place mentally. So in a good place. In a good place, but in a weird place. So weird's not always bad, you know. Sorry.
You got enough beer? You got someone going to get beer for you, or?
I have. This is my first one, but actually, I'm weird, and I have a mini cooler that Whenever I do these, I like prepare for like 20 minutes. I have water and like I have like snacks.
Yeah, I have
like,
water and I have I got some coffee. So
yeah, but now I was just like, so trust me, take a beer so as much helps me out a little bit just to talk and stuff where I just be like sitting here like this.
Yeah. All right, number 5, RIPW.
Well, this song is probably not what a lot of people think it is about.
Okay, if I was gonna guess, I was just gonna guess it's an elderly person that you love passing away.
Wow.
No. So this song is purposely quasi deceiving how it's written.
Okay.
On a terrible day in my life, I had this is going to kind of take away. I'm sorry if this takes away from the powerfulness of the song, but
actually, no, I think it's more genuinely. I think it's more powerful. You're not taking any.
So what am I? I had a dog. He was a Shih Tzu hybrid. His name was Pee Wee Herman. And me and my friend were standing in the driveway one day, and my mom and my son were in the side yard, and my wife was waiting to pull in the driveway. And my dog, it was a perfect storm of a few little accidents, and he got out, and I watched him get hit by a car and like thrown like into the air, and I freaked out, and I ran up, and he had bones sticking out of him, and he was bleeding out of his ears and his nose and all this stuff. And I mean, this dog was just like, he was my friend, you know what I mean? Like he was, just hanging out all the time and stuff. And he was like really close with the kids and all this stuff. And then he was just like this little Shih Tzu dude. So he's like this little like Buddha, like hairy, like chilled out Zen dude. And I took him to I raced him. It's about 20 minutes to like the local. And like, he was like just staring at me, like crying, man. And it was just like the worst, man. He had bones sticking out of him. There was blood everywhere and like all this stuff. His nickname was PW. That's why it's RIPW.
Oh, I gotcha.
And it just happened real fast, man. And he was like in a lot of pain, and I had to put him to sleep. And that's what the whole song's about, man.
Okay.
It was just about like, and it was going back to like not always loving the human race, man. This little dude was like, I probably cared about him more than like 90% of human beings, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it was just, the biggest juxtaposition was just like this violent death to this like chilled out.
Well, I think that's what's hard.
Man.
Like we all know life is going to end at some point, but to watch it happen so violently,
and just like him, like just looking at me, man, like, please help me. You know what I mean? Like, and I was just like, there's nothing I can do, man. And then on top of that being like, pretty much we went there and they were just like, he had so much, when he got hit by the car, it smashed his pelvis.
Oh.
And his spine, and it shattered into pieces and just like cut everything inside of him open. And they couldn't even take x-rays because there was so much damage, and I would have paid a lot of money to save his life, but they were just like, we're not even going to know for like a week if he'll live, because like all the swelling has to go down until he can see. And like he was like bleeding everywhere, and he was like shaking and like crying and all this stuff. And like, I know it's whatever, man. And I know that there's people that went through worse things with people, man. But like, I don't know, man. It's still like, I don't even like to think about it, really, man. It was just, and I think it's hard with dogs, man, because they're just cool. It's never like, oh, remember that time that dog was like an asshole to me, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
those are cats.
He was like this, like my perfect little like hangout, man. We're just like hanging on the porch and listening to music and stuff. You know what I mean? And like, and a lot of it had to do with my daughter, man. Like when she was born, he was real protective and like all this crazy stuff. And like they were like best friends, and her and my son watched him get hit. You know what I mean? And then I was like losing my mind and covered in blood and all this stuff. And like, so
I'm just looking at the lyrics here again.
Yeah.
Why did you describe it as the Reaper's robes thrown upon you? Just because you were the one that took him away?
Because it was up to me to put him to sleep.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like mad. Like my mom and my wife now, they're like, Dan, it's your decision. And I was like, why is this gotta be my decision? You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to be the one that's like, sorry. And then the hardest part, man, was like, I didn't see him, so we brought him in, and he was like in an emergency. You know, it was like we gave him to him, and then like they put us in a room, and then like so we made the decision to put him asleep based off all the information. And then they're like, "Do you want to see him? Like, do you want to hold him? Like, put him to sleep?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, of course." And I, you know, when they brought him in, I was expecting him to be all messed up, and they brought him in, and he was wrapped in a blanket, and just his head was sticking out, and he like didn't look messed up, man. And it like really messed me up, man. And then like I sat there and like pretty much. Like I held him while they gave him the shot, and he like died. You know what I mean? It was like, and it was just wild to like feel him die. I guess like watch him die. You know, and but the Reaper's robes thing is just, and it gets into the bigger picture. You know what I mean? It's not just about that. It's about, you know, the.
Well, I think, like I said, when I was listening to it, I thought maybe it was like a grandparent or something that you were sitting with them as they passed or something, and I think people can relate to this in that same type of way, like watching someone you love pass away. Yeah.
Or, I mean, making the decision, like when I was younger, my stepdad pulled the plug on my stepbrother, you know, on my brother.
Yep.
You know, and that, so it's the same decision, just on a grander scale. Right. You know what I mean? I'm sure. Yep. And Scott knows I write everything in Zayo with a certain degree of vagueness so that people can make every song their own.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it's not necessarily just about what happened to me. It's about like just sharing the experience, and you know, there's a lot of people that had a similar experience with, you know what I mean? Maybe there's someone that had a similar pet experience, or, you know, a loved one, and it doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't cheapen it. You know what I mean? It's about the experience is the experience, and loss is loss. And, you know what I mean? You know, but it was something that, you know, I felt, you know, it was just like it weighed on me, and that's part of this band, is that's how I get rid of these weights, is to write about it. You know what I mean? And then the song was going to be called "The Reaper's Robes" initially, but I like the RIPW. You know, so
that's a cool play on letters, I should say.
Yeah. So, and then it was like it was crazy that segued into like me sitting down with my daughter for the first time when she was like, you know, I believe she was probably like 4, and like we had our first like death talk. You know what I mean? Like really deep. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, she saw him bleeding. You know what I mean? So she still talks about it. She actually she'll quiz me and say, "Do you know what my least favorite thing in the world is?" And I say, "Yeah, I know. What is it?" She's a green Jeep, and I say, "Why is that?" She's like, "That's what killed Pee Wee." You know what I mean? And it's just like, to this day, that was like last week we were talking about it. And so that experience, you know, opened up. You know, a lot of talks and doors and things like that, you know, and so it's just, you know, that was like, as our family, that was our first like weird loss, you know, like that we shared with like the kids, and you know what I mean, and everything. So it was heavy in its own, you know, its own way or whatever. Yeah. But, and once again, I knew writing it, like, I was like, you know, I hope definitely came from that's probably the most personal, passionate song on the record. You know what I mean? As far as, you know, that type of thing. But yeah, so so
lyrically, it's kind of a downer.
Yeah, I know. It's but in the end, it's about putting a dog to sleep. You know what I mean? The Reaper's robes. Like I had the power of life or death. You know, in my own. You know, so I just kind of like liken that to, you know. And it says they were thrown upon me because I was forced to make the decision. Right. So that's like how that whole song started. You know what I mean? Like I didn't say like, "Hey, I want it to be my decision what to do." It was kind of like, all right, Dan, you make the decision. And so, and then it was just a visually, whatever, I thought you know, interesting route to take. You know what I mean? I believe that was the one where when I did the one part, Dave was like, "Dan, I don't mean to be mean, but next time we do a record, I hope," he was like, "I hope one of your dogs die again," or something like that. You know, just like totally joking, but like, just cause, you know what I mean? You know, just like, cause it had a lot of like, whatever behind it, you know, like emotion or whatever you want to say. So sorry.
Well, musically, it's a killer song. Lyrically, I guess it's a little downer, but musically, Scott, I was trying to figure this out. I played trumpet in band, so I have a little bit of knowledge, but I'm like, it sounds like it's 6 time signature, but it's not 6/8 because that's kind of a swing. And I messaged Jeff. I'm like, what the heck is this time signature? You know, but he says it's like a 6 on top of a 4 or 3 or whatever. So
yeah, it's well, fun. I've had a couple people actually point this out, and I am a Tool fan, but it's very Tool-esque.
Okay.
So the beginning of the song and like how the riff plays out, it's definitely like it's kind of like that Dana Carey or Danny Carey. I can't even talk, dude. Jesus. Danny Carey time kind of signature. So, but yeah, that song kind of started out of like, I really like this idea for that kind of like Tool-y kind of riff. And I just wanted to turn something like that into a heavier type of open riff.
Yeah.
But there again, too, with that song, I really love the play in between doing really, really heavy riffs. And then like, it almost sounds like smooth jazz that comes on the elevator when it gets on that clean part. Mm-hmm. So I love playing with all that kind of stuff and trying to kind of get into an aspect how it will work in a Zayo song. And that song actually, like it's an older one. Like it was one that was written musically a pretty long time ago.
Okay.
And like Dan's vocal delivery and lyrics saved that song for me, because it was like one of the ones that I've had for so long that I was kind of like, I don't even know if this should be on the record. And then how it ended up being a pretty incredible one. And yeah, like we were talking about earlier, I mean, you know, it's sad that people don't take so serious the loss of a pet. You know, I've lost one. I've actually lost a few, like when I was living with my parents.
Sarge,
and it's like,
baby.
Oh, dude. Yeah. So that, like, I don't think losing a pet. One thing that I read that made the most sense to me that I thought was really awesome was that because everybody recognizes how bad that is. So like you have a funeral, you have like all these set up things that are to kind of like, even though they're really nothing, but they sort of help you through the grieving process of a person. But there is nothing like that to a pet loss. When you lose a pet, it's literally like kind of cold. It's like, well, he can't survive, or he can survive, or whatever it is. Do you want to put him down? Putting him down is like almost like seems such a less thing to do. Like it's almost like this thing that like is just normal in like older pets, whatever. Like we know we don't get them as long too, so that's what it is. But there's nothing set up culturally for us that like really lets you mourn and grieve a loss of a pet, right? And dude, I still hold those like grieving processes from pets. I think losing a pet's super hard because you don't have a real good way of grieving it. And I think, you know, even now, like people are so close to their pets, like, dude, they're a part of the family. So
in the end, they're family. I guess that's like that's as simple as that. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And
so when he told me what the song was about, and he like, I read the lyrics, like I like it, I had trouble just reading them too. So yeah, this song turned out to be unbelievable for me.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites on the album.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it makes me happy that little dude
he'll live on.
You know, like,
he'll live on.
Pee-wee lives on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He's awesome, though.
Yeah, he was. He was so awesome.
Yeah, he was cool. You know.
All right, title track, Crimson Corridor. I'm assuming lyrically this is just about dreams or nightmares or getting sucked into that.
So this is the most probably thought out weird song on the, maybe not most thought out, but I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. You know, I've always talked about like anxiety and stuff, but I have like a separate version of like bipolar. So I go through these things where I get real bad anxiety, and then it shifts usually into depression, and then it shifts back into anger, and it's like an endless cycle. I've had it since I was a kid, and it's not necessarily subject to what's going on in my life. So therefore, like I could have everything in my life going perfectly and still get depressed. It's not like I'm depressed because I'm in like a bad situation. I can get angry, and it doesn't mean there's actually something going on that should make me angry or anxious or any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So this
I'm
song's
agreeing with you because I have the same thing on some levels. It's just, why are you depressed? Everything's going good. I don't know.
No, because that's true depression. It's not abnormal if you if you lose someone you care about, or you lose your job, or you go through this terrible thing. Depression's a normal thing.
Yeah.
But you can also feel those feelings when they're not, kind of like initiated by an event in your life.
Yeah.
So I guess what this whole record, not that the whole record's about, not it's a theme, but like the Crimson Corridor is about. I pictured it, so I was like thinking about it, like is in my brain. So the beginning of the song, like a signal is born from a crooked woman, on and on. All that, it's just a big fancy way of talking about like your brain being chemically imbalanced and not sending signals to the right places. And then the first line of that, or the first when that kicks in and Scott sings, that's probably one of my favorite things I've ever wrote, in the sense of like where I was able to find a way to say something that I've been trying to say for a long time. And that's when sorrow's seed awakes in me, it takes dominion inside my head. And the idea of like, I don't necessarily have control over feeling that way. You know what I mean? And I don't want to feel that way. And I do make a lot of strides to like recognize it. And I don't want to use the word combat it, but to deal with it. And, because my big thing is like, I'm not trying to let it spill over into my family or like make it anybody else's problem. So the song it goes through three phases. It goes through like the beginning is like depression, and then when it kicks in, the change begins as I stand within. That's anger. You know what I mean? And just like cut it all away. You know what I mean? Yep. And then the end is anxiety, the lowered slowly. You know what I mean? So this song was my attempt to put the way I feel into some sort of kind of like categorized thing. You know what I mean? And so to me, the Crimson Corridor is the idea of like a hallway, but it's like in your mind. And then in that hallway, there's doors, and this door is depression, and that door is anxiety, and this door is anger. And it's like, you don't want to be there, but you find yourself there all the time. And it's a corridor as opposed to a door, because it leads to different things, as opposed to just one place. And so I guess
why Crimson?
I guess I just imagined it inside of my head, you know what I mean? Like inside of my mind. And I just would think that it would be, I don't know if kind of, to me, it was like the idea of it being like, muscle and brain and blood, you know what I mean? Like, so like kind of like a more of an anatomy type of idea, like the Crimson Corridor, like kind of like a carved out tunnel inside of your mind, you know what I mean? And when I would sit there and envision it as like a whatever, I would just imagine it being this kind of like red, like dark red, kind of like this is gonna sound weird, but like where the walls are like muscle and stuff, you know what I mean? There's all these doors, kind of like some weird like Silent Hill, Hellraiser type of environment that you would maybe see in a movie like that. You know what I mean? Where you have all these like kind of doors like barely open, and there's like, you can hear like terrible things going on behind the door. And it's just, you don't want to be there, but you can't, you're always drawn back there and finding yourself there and like looking into different things. And,
or you're trying to escape, but every door is one of those rooms.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, that's the general idea behind the song. And then, as far as like being titled the record, it wasn't like every song falls under that. It's just, as I was talking to these guys back and forth as we were doing vocals and stuff, I believe one day I was just like, hey, I don't know why, but of all the, you know what I mean? Cause like, eventually you get to the point as you're writing an album, like what is the album going to be called? And I believe I just texted Scott or Jeff the one day and was just like, cause the Crimson Corridor is one of the last, I think, 3 songs that I recorded. Not that it was written like super at the end, but and I have like this OCD thing where if like I'll continually change a song up to the time I record it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just a word or like take a sentence out or add a word in. But I just feel like there was something about I think just I like the idea of the Crimson Corridor. To me, it sounded like an album title. You know what I mean? Or like so I just messaged them, and it was just one of those things where like, hey, out of all the lyrics looking through, and not that a album title has to be based off a lyric or whatever, but it was just kind kind of like presented itself, if that makes any sense,
Yeah.
you know. And then, and I think we talked in the beginning too, it's something easy to like try to like make visual, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, you can have a hallway or like, you know, all these things. Like it's a, you know, so you have all these, and then that's where like the Christopher McKenney thing came in, you know what I mean? And it's just like all these like crimson characters, and it was just kind of, you know what I mean? They're like, okay, that's it, you know what I mean? And that's why there's like I guess you haven't necessarily seen the entire layout. I guess there's been teasers for the entire layout and pieces on social media.
I think I've seen the entire layout.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah. So, but you know, there's like, it was just cool because like Karina could tie everything in with the crimson thing. You know what I mean? So, but that's, I guess, loosely what that's about. Once again, open to people's interpretations, but it's moving through the 3 cycles of like my experience with like mental stuff, you know, and I haven't taken medicine in a while. I'm not anti-medicine. I think that you need to, you know, people need to do what they need to do to be their best.
Yep.
And I was on it for a long time. And at that time where it stabilized me mentally, I was able to like create other structures to like fall back on when I quit taking medicine. And I, you know, I did it slowly and this and that. But I mean, I had to change my lifestyle. You know, I feel like mental health's a lot like physical health. I feel like there's times, you know, when you have to take medicine, you know, it's like if you have a heart condition, like you have to take medicine, you know, or certain medical conditions, like, listen, you really need to take medicine to like function as a human. But I feel like there's another category where it's like, you know, there's people that it's like, look, you could exercise and lose weight, or you could take a pill and lose weight. Right. You know what I mean? So now you're getting into a category where like you can make hard personal choices and get the same effects as like a medicine.
Right.
So for the last few years, I've been trying really hard to like, I've altered like little diet stuff, my lifestyle and things like that to like say, if I really want to like continue to do well and not be on medicine, then I need to do like this, and this. And it's not easy. You know what I mean? Just like, you know, like if you're like, you know, say you're like, I have the choice, I could take this diet pill or exercise. Like exercising is not easy. It's easier to take a pill. You know what I mean?
But the exercising is going to produce something longer lasting.
And then that's my point. I don't want to get on here and say like, listen, if you just like try hard, you don't got to take mental medication.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Anyone
that's
listening,
not what I'm
we
saying,
are not doctors.
Yeah. So, and that's my point. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying in my personal arena, I've like, you know, like weird stuff, like I meditate and stuff, you know what I mean? Like I had to like make personal choices. Like, all right, every day I have to like sit down and do this. If I like want to be able to, you know, survive, or, you know what I mean? If I want to be able to live a life and not like whatever and still deal with these things, but like, you know what I mean? And it's also been like my entire life. I'm getting old. So it's like, I guess like anything else, the more you deal with something, the better you get at it or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
well, not that I want to take us off on a rabbit trail, but for me, like one thing that helped me was having kids and watching them grow up and seeing joy in someone else.
Oh yeah.
That helped bring me joy and not focus so much on my.
No, I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of time the worst thing to do sometimes is sit around and just live in your head. You know what I mean? So I also think that kids pull you out of your head because it's just like, well, I got to do this. I don't have a choice. You know what I mean? So.
Well, that's why I like taking my kids out in nature. They just, their eyes are full of wonder over a pine cone or a worm or something. I miss out on that now as an adult. I don't see the wonder in that. And so, but I'm taking us off a path. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's not dude, that was a good path. Yeah, I like that path.
I don't stay on the path often. So that's okay. Yeah. We're a wormhole people. You know what I mean? It's
okay. We are.
Scott, musically, I noticed at the end of the song, it almost sounds like you're drug underwater. I don't know what was going on there, but what was there anything?
No, I mean, I try so hard to match whatever, like, because it's funny to me to like actually hearing Dan's, I mean, I've already knew all these, but like it's really cool to hear what Dan's lyrics come from or where they come from. Because a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the songs that are written, like I write them from like kind of the same thing. I think that we've talked about this a lot as a band, but you know, this band is like so much catharsis for all of us. So when I write anything, like there's always some sort of like, there's something that put me in the headspace to get to write it. And sometimes it could be as simple as like, I had a really cool riff and man, I just want it to be so heavy. And then some songs are like, I'm going through something personally and I pick up a guitar and I come up with a part, and the part has the weight of the event in my life. So a lot of this record and a lot of Well-Intentioned Virus was written around when my dad passed away. Okay. So there's a lot of like that weight of loss in a lot of this stuff. And Crimson Corridor musically, I wanted the end of that song to feel like what it feels like when you come home after something like that, and you fall into your bed and you're not there. You're sucked down. You're not like, you don't lay on, I mean, the weight of everything that just happened to you pushes you and you're just down. So like, I wanted to kind of emulate that sort of feeling. And I wanted to do it with like a type of whatever sound. So when I first came up, because that song is an older one too. So when I first came up with this weird tuning, the whole idea was to like, how can I get, because so many bands like drop to like A and B and like there's so much of that going on. But I was like, how can I get like that sort of low sound without like totally having to buy like bigger strings? Like, how can I do this to make, because I want to just play like how I normally do. So I like came up with an idea of dropping some stuff and like leaving some stuff the same. And then it afforded me the ability to find chords that would have that weight. So like the end of that song, those chords and the way it like has even the stop stutter thing, like all of that is like how I felt. And honestly, when I listened to the first time Dan did that song lyrically, I think he had his vocals on it, and that part had the lower into the jaws of dread. I just couldn't. It was too perfect. It was like I knew something would happen there, because I always know Dan's going to do the perfect thing, but I didn't expect that. I struggled to find something that would kind of emulate that feeling for me. And then like, not only did the feeling of the riff and like the way that music texture ends, his lyrics like perfectly summed up that for me too, because it felt that's exactly what it is. Like, so, you know, anything like that. Like when I remember coming home from the hospital when my dad passed away that day, and it was that you were lowered into the jaws of dread. It's crazy. But yeah. So that was kind of like that end riff was my most important part of that whole song. And then the rest of the song kind of came just from building on certain things. Like, but I distinctly remember the way that I wanted that end to sound, and it worked out like so perfect with lyrics and everything.
Yeah. It's amazing what just even the music can do.
Oh yeah.
You know, move emotions and stuff. And
Yep.
And then when you put on meaningful lyrics and things like that too, it's just very powerful.
Well, that's what I love, like what Dan said, because he's always, you know, his lyrics are written in a way that are distinctly what he's talking about, but they're also open to interpretation. So for me, like, you know, he's lowered into the jaws of dread because of what he goes through personally and all that. And then like my experience was the same. Like I didn't have the mental part of that as much, but it is the same type of feeling sort of, and it works. It just like works together, you know. I love it. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's why this has always worked, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know, and I write a lot, and then I'll like certain songs, like to me, that's how I match lyrics, you know, like that song's like very like desperate to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then these lyrics are very desperate to me. You know what I mean? And it's as simple as there's like desperate, angry, you know what I mean? Frustrated. I feel like I could go through and do the major emotions. I feel like Zayo songs kind of like capture, you know what I mean? But it's as simple as I just sit down with a bunch of stuff and I'm like, the song gives me this emotion. So you match it with like a lyrical content that's like kind of in the same vein. And I feel like they just like, then it like works well together, you know?
Yeah.
And it probably works well together because you guys have been making music together for many years.
Man.
So
Think about
half my life.
Yeah,
dude.
more so.
Yeah, you think about it, dude. Yeah. Yeah, we've been together as like me, Dan, and Russ have been together for it's
like the later 90s, which is a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Super,
you know what I mean?
It's so funny. Like the 90s don't seem like that long ago to me. And then I remember it's like, dude, it's 2021.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I know.
That's like,
you know what we should do? We should like go and have like, we should renew our vows. It's been so long.
I know. That'd be awesome.
Have like a Zayo renewal vow.
We'll get you can get like podcast rights to it. We'll go to the beach. We'll go to the beach. Bring some Jackson guitars and you know what I mean? Sorry.
Oh, that's fun. All right. Track 7, Transitions. I think this was the shortest song on the album. Pretty fast and brutal.
Yep. It's kind of like the older, kind of like melodic, kind of like, if we're gonna keep using the word crusher, it's the old melodic crusher, the like kind of like staggered. This is weird because this is a song that I wrote that isn't really negative. So this is a first. Also, this was written during season 3. You know what I mean? It's not about Twin Peaks. But if people that get into it, it definitely puts you in a weird place when you like start watching it. You know, especially when you're in the midst of whatever. And towards the end, when he's traveling through the different outlets and stuff. But this song isn't necessarily terrible. This song, I would kick myself for not knowing the quote right now, and I'm not even gonna attempt to speak it and butcher it. But it's just like transitions are that's the hardest part of life to me. You know what I mean? It's like transitions, and they're also where the greatest kind of like the good things come from. You know, as simple as like, it's like. If a woman's pregnant, it's the transition of like the act of having the baby that's hard. You know what I mean? It's not the baby existing or being, you know what I mean, or being pregnant, or life and death. You know what I mean? It's like I almost want to look it up. What's cool, and one of the first times I knew I really liked Matt Curley is he had some merch that had the quote on it. He has a slip mat. It's I want to say it's like I don't even want to butcher it. I might even look it up, but it's something along the lines of, and I apologize, I'm terrible with recall, but the life's enjoyable, death is peaceful. It's the transition that's troublesome. You know what I mean? Sure. That's like the act of dying. Like, you know what I mean? So this place, I wrote this song when I was in the mountains. Actually, this is like one of those weird, like watch Twin Peaks on the mountains. Like sitting in just thinking, like I said, like meditating and stuff. You know what I mean? This is one of the few positive songs. It talks about from seasons of life, death into seasons of life and things like that. You know what I mean? But it's just about notes on all these little transitions you see. You know what I mean? As far as like things transitioning in nature and so on and so forth, and about I even look at it as moving. Like you live one place. And then you live another place, and it's, the in between that's hard. And this song is whatever. This is just like something where I wrote it, and I enjoyed the imagery, and I just enjoyed writing. You know what I mean? Like, and I always wanted to, get to talk about the sort of Damocles and stuff. So I was happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't know if this was a reference to something political or something, but
no. And then no. This is it's just simple, man. I always have something with me to write, and I was just like whatever, and I was just like, I know it's not like the most exciting song, but I was just hanging out.
I love the song. I was like trying to figure it out lyrically. I'm like,
I was like up in the mountains, like meditating on transitions.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I like wrote this song, because I was just always like, man. I went through a lot of like personal stuff, and I like had a lot of big personal changes that I went through in the last couple of years, like kind of like with some work stuff and this and that, but like big like things that were like really heavy, like really heavy on my mind and like weighing and having to make a lot of big decisions. So this was just a weird song I wrote like in the midst of making all these like big decisions where I was thinking like, man, like the transitioning part of this is like such a nightmare. You know what I mean? Like, or just like where all the stress comes from, not the physical like whatever, but more just like.
Well, it's the fear of the unknown too. Like what I'm leaving something and I don't know what's coming, and you're just caught in this chasm.
And then the crazy part is like that. Yeah, the act of that moving to that thing to another. You know what I mean? Is like where all the like hardship lies, I guess. You know what I mean? And like, so it's real simple. And this song just goes through a bunch of like kind of like this is like one of those things where I would just like write down like random little thoughts. You know what I mean? And it's about like the same, cycles and just going over things over and over again. And like, it gets into like life and death a little bit, you know what I mean? And once again, it's a deep into season 3 of Twin Peaks. It was like, I was just in a weird place, And so that song, it's nothing intense. It was just kind of like a commentary on some like personal stuff and, but written through the lens of a couple things and just kind of like lightly touching on some, whatever. But, and if you have specific questions about parts, let me know. I can usually try to roughly explain.
Well, I didn't have this earlier. I just put up the lyrics here on my phone, but.
That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, this song, I was just mostly trying to figure out what it was about.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, and it's more of like a concept, you know what I mean? More than like a specific like idea or an ideal, and it was fun. It reminded me of like that's a song that reminds me of like an older Zayo song. That reminds me of something that would have been off like an earlier record, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Kind of put it in the same categories, like what were we saying, like Fall Farewell, and you know what I mean? Or it's more like melodic, I guess. Maybe not Fall Farewell is a good example, but like that one has a little bit, But yeah, sorry. Sometimes I do this and I try to go through the lyrics in my head, thinking if there's like anything specific, you know what I mean?
Well, the first few lines, the snapping of strings, strange rhythms and sounds, a reminder to us that all things must end.
Yeah, that's just about, I don't know. I guess that's,
Dan, even when you don't try, you write killer lyrics.
I know.
It's just like that just gets into cycles and like just watching things, like, and that's what I mean, like watching things in nature. Even they were talking about before, like the violence amongst like animals themselves and things like that. Like sitting around and watching something attack something else, and you know what I mean. It's just like, and that song's a lot about like sensing change. Like the snapping of strings, strange rhythm and sounds like sensing things are changing, you know what I mean? Like, and just being like, things sound different or feel different. This is and then some of the weird lines in this, this will be a whole nother podcast, but one of my favorite lyricists of all time died around the time when we were writing this. And I actually went back and rewrote some stuff. His name was, his pen name was Robert Hunter. And a couple lines in that song and throughout the record are actually they're kind of like Easter egg odes. So like he died, and I told these guys, like when he died, I actually went back in and changed some lines in some of the songs and put little like he was like one of my top 3 like favorite ever. Like he's the person that taught me like I don't know, just like it's hard to explain, but he was a huge influence, and he died like while I was at the tail end of like writing a lot of lyrics and stuff. And so like the last leaf to fall touches the ground and turns day inside. A lot of that stuff is like, I could get into it, but it's like it's just like some little things I was like, I kind of put in there as like kind of like similar to stuff that he had written, but kind of tweaked it a little. Didn't want to like straight rip them off, but I could do a whole other thing. There's like about 30 little things peppered in through all the songs that I did. So,
wow.
But, and then for everyone that Googles who that is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to crush all of your preconceived notions of who I am as a lyricist. Yeah, Scott knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
But he,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask Scott, musically, or I mean, this
musically, I wanted. It's funny because like it's it's always really, so I did a band before I was in Zayo called Creation is Crucifixion, and it was just a straight up tech metal, death metal band. And I'm always trying to like throw little hints of that stuff in some of these Zayo songs every once in a while, just one, to see if I can even do it anymore, and two, just to do it for fun, right? And this is one of the ones where there was some riffs in this song that I'm like, this is kind of reminiscent of what I did back then, and I just wanted it to be like just nonstop, just a nonstop one, shorter, nonstop. And I always like, sometimes too, it's funny, like as a guitar player, tone is such a big like harbinger of like what you're going to write, because if you have some really great tone, you can do kind of like sort of minimalist guitar stuff, but if your tone's good enough, it'll still sound awesome, right? Oh, there he is.
Cosmo, but
there he is.
Yeah, sorry.
How old is he?
We don't know. He's a rescue, so who knows?
I'm surprised my dog Tater's not behind me on the couch.
He actually just busted through the door and up here, so I apologize.
No, you're fine. But yeah, so like there's some like crunchy riffs towards the middle of the song that like are super simple, but they sound like the tone sounded good enough that it like helped it. But yeah, there wasn't anything real crazy. I just wanted to try to like do something a little more intricate and brutal.
Well, sometimes the simple riffs are the best ones. I mean,
yeah.
Look at AC/DC; they're not fancy, but their songs stick and they're classics. And
they found one riff and they just played it for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Yeah. And I love the juxtaposition of that song, the kind of like
how the chorus comes in like weird.
Yeah, I love like that like kind of fast, kind of like melodic, and then just that like super simple, just kind of like like little break part, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I feel like after listening to you talk about it, Scott, I feel like that's a song that was just like a fun song for everybody to write.
Yeah. There's some songs too, like I just envision, I know like Jeff's gonna have fun playing this. Because it's just like the way everything kind of falls into place. Like I know he's going to be like really excited to like mess with some of these parts. So,
well, if I'm remembering, some of these are all getting blurred now that we're talking, but that's the one he does a little cymbal thing right away too, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, there's like he does, man. I hope people like if when people buy this record, not only did he work really hard on all that ambient background noise, but it's really a headphone record. So if you get it, definitely listen to it in headphones, because there's so much cool stuff that Jeff does, like on the drums and on everything that like, and even with the guitar work, there's so many things going on the record that we really tried really hard to make it like, wow, you're going to listen to it like a couple times and then you'll catch something new, hopefully. But yeah, Jeff does all kinds of cool little stuff all the time. And that one he does. Yep.
Yeah. It's great. I've been listening to this album for a month now, and just every time I listen, I just pick up something new, and it's there's so many layers to it. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Man, I'm so happy that you have that experience, because that's me too. Like, it's funny. I listen to all our records, but man, I'm like listening to Dan talk about the lyrics. I'm like, you know what? I might go listen to the record before I go to bed.
Yep. I enjoy it too. I'm excited. I'm really excited for just to come out here, like the kind of everyone's overall, man.
Yep.
Not that it's whatever, I guess,
Yeah.
Well, again, like you said, like the lyrics they're anyone can relate to it, but yet when you hear the origin of where they came from, to me, that just gives it so much more depth.
Oh yeah.
All right. Track 8, Nothing's Form. Probably my favorite song on the album.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I really like this one.
And that's a good example of just like writing, just enjoying like the writing process for me. I mean, the whole song is about irony. And actually, here's a good example. I probably 3 or 4 years ago, just wrote down the line, I watched the rebels argue the rules. Cause you know what I mean? It was just like, just to me, it was such a, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I like that. It's just like a kind of like a weird, it's a long story where that came from, but like, and then, when I was listening to the songs, it's such like a driving like repetitive kind of like riff, you know what I mean? So I was like, wanted to do something that was kind of more like anthem-esque, you know what I mean? Like where it was just like a building. And then, so I just challenged myself to like, just keep coming up with ideas, like watch the rebels argue the rules, watch the builders abandon their tool. You know what I mean? Just like using like kind of a general like rhyme structure just to keep going. And like, can I keep thinking of like weird examples that like have a, I don't know, that like sound, like have an interesting sound, or like the way
I watched the heroes feed the innocent to the wolves, laughing like fools. And
yeah, and it's just like, I feel like it's a lot of visual, you know what I mean? Like conjures visuals. And in the end, our record label is called Observed Observer. And so I'm real into that. So this whole song is just about like, the idea behind Nothing's Form is like, I'm observing all these like different scenarios, kind of as like a fly on the wall, or like an uninvolved, like third party, just like,
well, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Like when you're young, you're part of this action all the time.
Yep.
And as you age, you realize I don't have to be in the action. I can just kind of watch things.
Yep. Yeah. And so it just goes through like just these ironic, you know, not ironic, but, you know, just kind of like different, ideas of people, you know, kind of doing the opposite. But I was really, this is probably one of the longest lyrics I worked on, as far as just, you know, writing and like, you know, whatever. And I'll say it every once in a while. One of my favorite things, like on the lines on the new record, is I watched the mirrors and saw only things I despise lie behind my eyes. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I just feel like it gives it just enough of a personal kind of push. You know what I mean? Because it's finally at the end, you know, so this observer observing all these things, and at the final thing, he observes himself, you know what I mean? And is like, isn't pleased with what he sees, you know what I mean? So it's just this idea of, and not necessarily an observer, like some like overwatching thing, but just the idea of this being like, you know, kind of like a camera in the room, just like observing what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
And that, but primarily this was a song that I just had a lot of, you know, fun with, just like starting out. It just started with that line, and it was a while, and then it was just like building, and then a few more, and then kind of like developing a theme, and then kind of just like trying to, not, you know, try to have every line be cool and have substance, you know what I mean? As far as like, without filler. Oh, and I'll say this, this is the first album I've ever personally done like a ton of personal pre-production on. Like, so like albums prior, I was prepared, but I didn't necessarily have the ability at home to like go through things ahead of time and like record them. But this album, I would write, record, at home. Just they would give me the tracks, I would record, and then from there I would send it to Scott and Dave and say like, here's my first draft of lyrics.
Oh, okay.
You know, and then I've always prided myself. I feel like I don't want to say criticism well, but I take, you know what I mean? If someone says like, I like this, I don't like this, I don't, you know, once again, don't take it personally. It's like, and try to look at myself like, all right, I can do better. And so this was a big song, just like pushing, you know what I mean? Pushing to like try to come up with a lot of lines where there wasn't any filler, and you know what I mean? And and it was just it was just like, I think that's what's cool about this record, is it was just like, just had fun writing. Not that the songs are fun songs, you know, per se, but like, you know what I mean? Just enjoying the actual, like, wonder more like a guitarist or something, like just enjoying the act of like, I like just, you know, if I'm imagine you could play a riff and you're like, I just like the way this riff feels. It's like the same idea, but like writing words, like I just like the way this line sounds, and I like the way like everything works together, and I just get some sort of like, feeling of accomplishment or whatever, but or just being like, oh man, I like the way it came out. What I might do, if it's all right, my phone's getting low, so I am going to dip out for 1 second. I have a pair of wireless earbuds.
So I'm going to talk to Scott about his singing. So
with a mic, and then I can plug my phone in. So give me 1 second. I apologize. Cool. I didn't want to derail the podcast. I'll be I got everything right in the other room, so I'll be 1 second.
All right, sounds good. So Scott, you got to sing quite a bit on this one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I loved like Dan's lyrics. I loved them, and I felt like it fit. I felt like it really worked in that beginning part. and it just, you know, if it sounds good and everybody likes it and it works well, we will do, you know, we won't shy away from anything like that. So I had a lot of fun with it. I like to, like, a lot of the singing on this record, because like some of the stuff that I've done prior to this record would be like in a little higher register. It'd be more like up, kind of more, you know, higher or yelly almost. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the stuff on this one, I felt like I was able to find like a really nice, like lower level, like kind of like softer voice on some of it. So I tried really hard to do that. But I just love Dan's lyrics, and I was excited to sing them on some of that stuff. So yeah, so that was fun. And too, like, I do think Dan, like, especially for me, like, I think he's very audible. I think you can really, if you have the lyrics in front of you, you can really hear exactly what he's saying. Yeah. But it's always kind of a bummer to me with how beautiful his lyrics are, that just, if people that aren't like a normal heavy music listener, or like someone that listens to screaming, that can decipher it better. Yeah. I always love that I can sing some of his lyrics sometimes, so like they're audible to like anybody that would be willing to give it a shot. Yeah. Because they're just such great, all of them, everything. Even like you were saying, like even his like throwaways are better than most people's like best attempt, right? So but yeah, like I was super excited. I was glad that, and there was enough lyrics there that I was able to kind of use a portion that he goes to in later in the song, and I was able to take that and use that first. So like it's kind of like your first, you know, like intro to everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that worked out really well. And then the music too, like we're all like big Doom fans, like, you know, not that, I mean, as you get older, I think maybe you slow down a little bit. So like Doom kind of fits you really well. So I just love getting into like, you know, guitar parts, or like even just song structures that have like a really like interesting, but like kind of like plodding way to move. And I felt like this kind of had, especially with like how the clean guitar works and then the heavier stuff comes in, I really, really like that. Yeah. Like how you feel like it's kind of like a, you know, it's like you're walking along like in a daze, how the guitar kind of flows. So, and yeah, it was fun. There was nothing really, trying to think how long, I can't remember when this song was written. I think this was more like, this record, or this song was, I think, a closer writing to when we actually did this record than the older stuff. So yeah, I just had fun with it, and I was.
Yeah, I love how the end kind of slows down and just gets real sludgy, and
yeah, and I love, like, I always love those little like kind of arpeggio like picked out kind of parts. So I wanted to do that, and then like we came up with the idea of having that kind of all the other part of the song kind of like move away, and then that stuff kind of builds up at the end. And especially the way like we were able to transition from that to like the next song that's coming up.
Yeah. All right, Creator Destroyer.
Yep. Looks like Dan's still kind of
still gone.
No, you're fine, dude. There he is.
You can't hear me, can you?
I can barely hear you.
It's low.
That should be good. Sorry.
You're all good.
I apologize. I have Steph's.
There we go.
See if you find my other pair. I had these wireless ones, and I was like, oh, wait, they don't have a microphone.
Let me see. I gotta make sure.
I can probably dip onto my computer if I have to, so you know what I mean? It's like not the worst. We got. I at least got a little charge there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But sorry about that.
You're all good. Creator Destroyer. We're up to track 9.
Sorry. That's a weird one.
Well, I was sitting down with my 10-year-old son this morning. We were looking at the lyrics together, and we were trying to figure this one out. And yeah, we had some mature discussions about certain parents and their kids, but I don't know if that's what it's about.
So this whole song, I've always been, I guess, especially since I've had, since I had kids, I guess the idea of something like that's like insane to me. You know what I mean? So I pretty much went to sleep one night, and right before I went to bed, I was like looking at my phone, and there was this video that I was watching, and it was a mom in a minivan, and she was like actually on the sand on the beach, and she was driving like parallel to the ocean. So you have like, the waves coming in, and she was driving along the waves, and a guy in a truck so I believe he said the truck was filming it. Like he saw what was going on, was filming it on his phone, and the kids were like hanging out the window, like help us, and so on and so forth. And the mom just kept saying like, they're all right, it's okay. You know what I mean? And they're driving. And then at one point she just cuts the wheel and drives like right into the ocean. And the waves just like took the car and like flipped it over. You know what I mean? And like, it was just crazy. And people started running in to try to help and all this. And then I went to sleep. And then
I'll be right back. Okay. Dan will be I'll be back quick.
And then pretty much when I woke up in the morning, I wrote the first, like, it just came to me. I was still kind of like thinking about it, but the mother whispered to the water, trembling, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then, I mean, it even goes back into things like if you think about like back from the past, like biblical, like Abraham and his son, and just like all the crazy ideas of like doing that or thinking about it or contemplating it or whatever. So it started with that first line, and it's not a song like talking about it or trying to glorify it. It's me just being completely kind of perplexed by that situation.
That was the word that came into my mind too. And then when I was talking to my son too, it just, he's old enough to start talking about some of this stuff. It's like, yeah, there's people that go through like a mental breakdown or whatever, and they kill their children, and it's terrible, like.
Yeah. And then, and I just tied it together with like, Cronus in like the old mythology was a Titan, and there was a prophecy that he would be undone by one of his offspring, and every time his wife like had a child, he would eat it. And Zeus, when Zeus was born, she dressed a rock up like a child, and he ate it and thought he had ate the child, but he didn't. And then in the end was undone by him. And I just tied that in to just like, it was like just kind of like not the glue, but it was like the idea of like that kind of pulled the concept together about how like there's been these ideas of this like throughout history, like from like Roman, Roman. I don't know if you want to call it religion, but like what's the word I'm looking? Not folklore, but Roman mythology.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Greek mythology. I'm sorry, not Roman. From Greek mythology to like the Old Testament to all this, there's always been this like weird underlying undertone in a lot of our like larger kind of not religion, but everything from mythology to religion, where there's this like underlying tone of like a sacrificing your child, or like people eating children and things like, or you know what I mean, like just these like terrible things. And it's always odd to me, like I remember after I wrote it, Scott sent me a picture. His daughter was in school, and they were like learning about Cronus, and it was like a picture of a guy eating a child, and it's just like, I guess part of it's crazy that it's all around us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these things happen. And in this song, it's simply me just like exploring what a crazy idea that is. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying like, yeah, this is a cool song about like a parent that kills it. It's more just like, it's just like,
well, it's like the fascination with serial killers. It's not like you're glorifying the crime, but you're like, you want to know what makes them tick. Like what?
Yeah, I guess that's the idea, is like what's going through their head, like, or what would drive a person to do this? Like, could I ever be driven? You know what I mean? It's like they start just thinking, and it's just like, so it's just exploring an idea and a thought. And it's and I mean, that's one of my favorites, man. Like I was listening to the song, and I was just like, I literally, like I said, I woke up and I was like, mother whispered to the water, trembling, you know what I mean? And I was just like, and then the father part I wrote, and then the end of the song. But my favorite thing about this song is it comes in and it's just brutal. It's like, it reminds me of like walking through like wet sand or something. It's just like this, like, and we talked about this way of writing, and it's just like you give someone this like crazy visual to think about, and then it just like this like plodding heavy music stops, and it's just like this beautiful background to just like think about this real, you know what I mean? It's just such a, you know, I just think that song is just so cool. Not what it's about is cool, but it just like it just pulls you, I feel like, in different directions, like emotionally, mentally, you know, things like that. And it's discussing like a taboo, I guess, topic, you know what I mean? Like that people don't like usually want to open up and talk about, you know? And I do think a lot of times it is like a mental health issue. And I guess it's good if you don't understand it. It's better like, yeah, man, why not? You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, I totally get it, man. You know, like, you know what I mean? I think same with, you know, serial killers or anything like that. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think it's, and you've heard it, and some people, I don't know if this will be out before or whatever, but I think the coolest part of the entire record is the cut from Nothing's Form into Creator Destroyer. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, it's like getting hit by a bus. You know what I mean? It's like just the coolest, like musical dynamic on the record, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I know I didn't have a lot to do with this, but Scott and Jeff did an amazing job of like creating the order of the songs. Do you know what I mean? Like the that's just as important as the song itself is how you place them together. That's what carries the theme. So so and like I said, this is more of a, like, there's not a heavy whatever to this. This is more of just me. Yeah, it was just like I was writing, and like we were in the midst of doing this record, and you know, pretty much just was this thing where it was just like, so I saw this thing and just kind of started me thinking, and then it was just kind of go down the rabbit hole, and then it was just like, once again, it was just like it all came together on its own in a weird way, you know what I mean? And just to, and I mean the pure idea of it's just like just pure brutality, you know what I mean? Like, and not like glorified good brutality, just like the dark. You know, and it's just just another kind of nightmare in the new record. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just like, you know.
Is it I don't know if you'd call it the bridge or whatever, but Scott, are you singing with somebody, or is that just you layered?
Actually, it's me layered, but our Dave was the guy. He came up with all the really, because there's like three. It's probably this is the first Zayo record ever to have like 3-part harmonies. So, but Dave came up with the harmonies for that whole part, and it really, really hit it home. So, yeah.
I love how you guys can explore those different things. You know, like the 6/4 time. You know, before in the song, and then you know harmonies and stuff, but still make this massive, heavy record.
Yeah, I think no matter what we're never going to stray away from like the superly just heavy, violent type of stuff. Like I don't even care. The older I get, the heavier I want it to get. So like I'm never going to like stray away from like being super heavy. But I think what makes this record even cooler, and what makes the heavier parts heavy, are those little spaces where like these melodic parts come in.
Right. Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, with Creator Destroyer, it's really like apparent. Like I loved the whole idea of doing that first part of that song. It's just crushing chords. And then like all of a sudden it all like comes out of nowhere, and it's just this really pretty, like serene part. And I used an ebow on some of that like higher, like kind of like slidey sounding guitar part. And then the end of it just comes back in crushing. But like, I thought too, what was really cool about that song is how the vocals work on all of it. And then Dan has that first part that's like the heaviest part. And then like when the second part comes in, where I sing is like super heavy, but it like worked so well as like a bridge or whatever that would be, you know? So, I think what we try to do a lot, I'm sure everybody kind of does this, but like, instead of I never want to force anything, and we kind of let the song do and speak to us in a way. Like when things do work, we'll try stuff, and like that's why I think it's cool. Like that part comes out of nowhere, the singing part. It comes out of nowhere. It doesn't happen again. It's at the end of the song. You don't even. It's almost like by the time that comes in, the song's over. So like, but I think it's really impactful because it does. It goes from like super heavy, super pretty, heavy, super heavy but singy, and then ends on some pretty heavy stuff. So
right, awesome. Number 10, Lost Star.
Sorry. Doing when Scott's talking, I've been charging my phone.
Yeah, I'm at like 18%, so I'm hoping I'll have just enough to get done.
And I charged it, so whatever. But Lost Star. That's what you said, correct? Yeah, that's what we're at. I'm sorry. I like looked down and was like, yeah. This is another good example of just having fun writing, and this is another good example of this is the main this is one of the main, I guess, how can I put it, dedications or kind of like when I was talking about Robert Hunter before, this is the song that I really like wrote that was based off a lot of stuff that he wrote that I really liked, you know what I mean? And I listened to a lot of Doom, like we were talking about before, but this is like this is the first song I probably ever wrote lyrically that's I would kind of like say is dipping its toe in the pool of like psychedelic lyrics. Do you know what I mean? Like just like visually, you know, just kind of like these bizarre kind of like mental ideas that, you know, transitioning tides of circling eyes burst into light before me. You know what I mean? Just trying to create these weird kind of like mental landscapes of whatever what the song's about. It's not about anything concrete. This is more of an exploration of just like writing. And like I said, it was kind of my weird dedication to Robert Hunter in a weird way. You know, it has like a lot of kind of nods in that end. And it's, I would say if anything, this song is similar to Transitions in just like general, just like observe, you know what I mean? Observing, but this was just kind of like trying to create cool, like visual ideas. Do you know what I mean? And this, like I said, it's my favorite Scott, the stuff he wrote for the one part. You know what I mean? It's my favorite. And it's just kind of a creepy, it's like kind of like this like dark psychedelic kind of like ideals with, you know, kind of like trying to think the best way to, you know, and just general kind of like I said, like some of the transitions just kind of like, I mean, I apologize. This one's a hard one to kind of describe or explain. But the best I can do is it's very similar to Transitions. It's just like it's just about, you know, the kind of like basic life and death stuff. You know what I mean?
Does the title have a specific meaning, or was that just random?
It's a kind of a nod to Dark Star.
Okay.
You know what I mean? This is really what it is. This like I said, this entire song was like I wrote for, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of different. I would have to do like it would be a whole podcast breakdown of all of it. Like, it's just lyrically, it's like pretty much a song I wrote to like kind of, you know, back to like someone that I really respected, just kind of like using similar like phrases and wording and like ideas, but it still has the Zayo kind of dark life and death stuff going on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The Lost Star in and of itself isn't any like super specific thing. You know, I just like sometimes like a song like this in my head, I pictured it as like a movie. I'm watching a movie, so I'm just describing like what I'm seeing on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to having like a deep, specific, you know, if you called me, you're like, hey, what's going on in the movie? And I was just like, man, this, you know what I mean? You're like explaining, you know, so it's just kind of like, I had some of these like weird visual ideas I was just trying to lay out.
It's like you're stating what is rather than describing where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like
I love the song. It was actually one of the first songs I started laying out. It's probably one of the most straightforward songs musically. I don't know if you would agree with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just like has a repetitive verse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. It's probably the most like traditionally structured song on the record. Maybe, you know what I mean? So it's just like
I think that's
it was.
fair.
It was a very like approachable template to just do something and have fun. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the versing and also it just goes back to a lot of stuff I've always read about. Like it's kind of like Jin Ba Tai, you know, it talks about the rider and things like that. You know what I mean? It's a similar,
Yep.
like you know, life and death and repetition and transitions and just kind of like weird, dark, psychedelic imagery. And you know what I mean? Just kind of, but yeah, there's not like any like I guess like very deep you know what I mean, like point or personal experience or anything. It was just a just trying to write and say like, you know, just go back to this person and be like, take all these little tricks and like specific things that stuck out to me and just make a play on them, and you know what I mean, and have fun with a song that just provides a platform to just have fun writing over. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I apologize. You know?
No, dude, no. You're awesome. I love all that
Musically,
stuff.
I love the long break in the middle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that gives
Like I said, that's my favorite part. I was like, man, Scott, you know, that's a good one. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, it's all those years of being around such a perfect lyricist as you, my friend. But yeah,
the endless hum is my favorite part. You know what I mean?
Oh
Just
yeah,
like, that's such a cool.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no, it's like really like that. It happens like that now a lot. Like you were saying earlier, you know, we've all been writing together for so long. It's not like I understand. I see Dan's like kind of working, how he works, how he writes, and how, you know, so like it's super inspiring to me to like try. And especially when he's like, no, I'll keep a couple of your lines. I'm always super excited because I'm always like, you're going to write a better one. But so yeah, we keep a little bit of that stuff. Sometimes like I'll come up with something for a clean part and it'll work really well with like what he was already talking about. So
there's been times in the past where like he wrote something and we kept it and it fit perfectly with what I was writing a song about, and it was like just bizarre, like, well, that fits perfectly weird. So you know what I mean?
That's it. Just time together.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good one.
But yeah, musically, I love that type of floaty riff stuff. You know, Zayo does that a lot. I mean, Rising In is one of those floaty riffs. 5 Year Winter is sort of like a floaty riff. There's some stuff on like Parade of Chaos that has like Buzzing's kind of like that floaty riff. And Lost Star came to me, and I do love that Gojira band a lot, but I totally recognize that Gojira does pull a lot from like older, like Morbid Angel stuff. And I listened to Morbid Angel when I was like in high school. So there is something, I think what Gojira does, it's so cool, is they take like these Morbid Angel ideas, because Morbid Angel is obviously like for a certain audience, right? But they like bring it to a bigger audience, and they do kind of similar things that Morbid Angel does, not by ripping them off at all. I think Gojira is totally innovative and they do their own thing. And I actually really like that band, but I see like where they're inspired by that. So like, there's a lot of things that I do for some weird reason that I get inspired from like older Morbid Angel records. And I'm able to kind of like, you know, weave them into how Zayo would sound. So it doesn't sound like a death metal part, but like that whole like kind of chuggy, stoppy part after the floaty riff is total Morbid Angel. Like that's kind of stuff that they would do. And then obviously like the next kind of like chorusy, I guess you would call, part where it's more single noted. You know, it just, that kind of stuff, it felt really right there. Like, and Jeff's there again, like I had like kind of a skeleton of how that part would go. And then Jeff makes it perfect with his drum pattern and stuff. And that song felt too like it was, you know, the way all that stuff was working together, like Dan said, it is kind of like structured in like your normal like verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. And I was like, I don't know where to go on this. Now we could I could come in and do some sort of like like a breakdowny riff, and then it kind of just seems like a typical, like, here's this, then a breakdown. I was like, why don't we like throw it on its head, and I'll go, we'll do all this stuff and it'll be pretty blazing, and then all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere with this weird spacey part, and that fits with like the psychedelic idea of the lyrics, right? So like that whole part kind of comes in as like a sort of psychedelic space part, and I love it. I love to like my favorite thing about doing some of that stuff is figuring out how you go into a part like that doesn't make it so weird, and coming out of a part like that actually works. So those are always my like, I have so much fun like working on getting into a clean thing and then getting out of it without it sounding super awkward. But I love that it's like abrasive. So yeah, just a song working with dynamics.
You're really good at it, Scott.
Well, I'm trying, man.
And I think it's good and honorable to like use your influences, that you
oh yeah,
in some sense you become what you are surrounded by,
Absolutely, dude. That's like I was talking to I forget, we've been doing some of these lately because of the record coming out, and somebody asked, and I get this question or this thing a lot, and it's always really awkward, but like they'll be like, so what is it like being super influential? And I'm always so taken aback by that, because like I don't look at myself like that at all, because I'm so influenced by so many things.
Right.
Like there were bands,
by the way.
Dude, yeah, like there were bands from our hometown that I like learned from that like didn't get to go anywhere. They just played in our hometown, but they were like some of the best bands ever.
Yeah. And to this day, it's not even like you look back and you're like, you're like, this is still rips, man. It's
this
like
is
stupid.
so
You know
good.
what I mean? It's like,
so like we were influenced by all that stuff, and we're influenced by all the metal bands before us. And I'm such a fan. I'm such a fan of all the kind of music. So like, yeah, like I guess you just get tagged like influential because we were willing to just keep going, man. Everybody else kind of drops out, and we were like, we're just gonna keep going.
Right. Yeah, but well, I mean, even if you think about it, though, like even the huge bands like Metallica, they're influenced by someone else.
Oh yeah, dude! Like
it always carries on, and just to be
Diamond Head and stuff.
Right,
yeah, dude. How crazy is it? You listen to Kill 'Em All. Like Kill 'Em All is straight up "Am I Evil" over and over and over and over again. Like they stole Diamond Head's like ideas, and they just like, and then all of a sudden, Ride the Lightning comes out, and like, whoa, wait, this is like, okay, this is like kind of their own thing, but like, yeah, all of it's influenced by something.
Right.
So
well, and just it's great to be a part of receiving from other bands that you like, but also being able to use that influence to create something new and inspire other bands.
That's how, honestly, that's like as an art community should be. It should never be competitive. An art community should always be, I have this, I want you to succeed, use this.
Right.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use yours, and we're going to all work together, and like we're going to lift everybody up, because the art community, like I think that's like with music and anything, like I think that whole competitive spirit, for some stupid reason in the business world or whatever, like I always hated it, that it like when music becomes business or art becomes business, like you have to feel like that's something. Like no, like I would rather totally just build everybody up, and like I don't care how, if a band's good, I want them, I'm like never get jealous, man. I want them to be as big as they can be, but I like, I want people to like, be helpful, and like we got to stick together as like a group, because like nobody's helping you. So
I think that's what makes Zayo so great, though, too. I mean, you have a massive cult following, but yet you're not full of yourselves. You're just regular guys that love interacting with your fans and just making good music and talking about it. And
I don't think any of us think of fans as, it's just like half the time we're at the shop, we're all out all the time. So like, you're just friends. There's like
some of us are friends you haven't met yet.
Yeah. Like, dude, like there's so many people, like we go to shows and like, there'll be tons of the same, like they'll come to a couple shows, or like people we've seen in all these other shows. And yeah, dude, nobody, I don't care who you are, man. Everybody is the same. And I'm so happy people care. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just happy people care, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not like you're for yourself, like, hey man, thank you. I'm glad you care. You know what I mean?
yeah,
'Cause,
that's really it.
you know.
You guys still got a little juice in your batteries?
Let me check it. I think we're good. I think I should be
Yeah.
okay.
I
Yep,
mean,
I'm
worst
okay.
case.
We
I
got
still
one
have
song left here.
I think we're good.
I still have at least 5%. So
I have
worst
15.
case, if I get through that, I mean, even if we have to be like, give me Scott talk for a minute while I charge
Yeah.
my phone.
No,
So,
I think I'm good.
I don't think it's going to die or anything. Let me check real quick just to be sure. But where we got? Where's it at? 4%. Actually, I was wrong. Hold on. Yeah, it sucks. But would you want to do? How about this?
I'll do music first,
Do music first. Is that okay?
and then go to lyrics.
If this charges for like 3 minutes, if I get to 10%, we'll be good.
Yeah,
so.
you'll be fine. Okay,
Sorry.
awesome. So
I can still hear what you're saying. I just probably sound like crap for any type of, you know what I mean?
okay, no, that's cool. So yeah, the web is actually. This was recorded at the same time Well-Intentioned Virus was, and we didn't know what to do with it.
Okay.
And they were actually two separate songs. So like the first part of it was its own thing. And then the second part of it where it kind of gets heavy and then clean again was its own thing.
Okay.
And Jeff actually was the guy that's like, look, I have this weird idea. You're probably not going to like it. I'm like, dude, if I don't like it, I'll just tell you, like, I'm open to any idea.
Right.
So he's like, I have this idea to mold these two songs together and make just one big piece. And I'm like, okay, let me hear how you do it. And he did it. And I was like, pretty impressed because immediately I was just like, that works so well. And I love the idea of having like a 10-minute song. It's just I've always wanted to do something crazy like that. So, but yeah, so those songs were written and recorded back when we did Well-Intentioned Virus. We couldn't find a home for them, but we knew eventually like there would be a home for these things because we just loved them so much. And it was a weird one too. I was very apprehensive because like you were talking about, this song is full of me singing.
Right.
And I'm always, we've never done a song with me singing this much. So, but we're also like, don't care. And we're going to do what we want to do. And
that's what makes the best albums.
yeah. Like we were just like, let's just do it because it's cool. We all like it. And if people don't like it, they get 10 songs that they can then shut number 11 off if they want it. So, but Dan, like he sent me his lyrics. So I worked really hard to come up with the melodies for how that would flow in the guitar part. The guitar part actually stems, like all that clean work stems from an idea that me and Russ had for Toll to Scream. So when we did Toll to Scream on Self-Titled, there was an idea on how to like do like an intro to Toll to Scream that had sort of the same chord structure. We never did it. We never used it. And we did a different beginning to Toll to Scream on Self-Titled. So, but I always had that in the back of my head. Like I always liked that thing that me and Russ came up with, but we never really kind of did anything with it.
The idea is actually like 20 years old now.
But yeah, the idea is super old. Yeah. Like that whole guitar stuff was like the beginnings of it were formed way back then. So
crazy.
So yeah, we wrote all that stuff, recorded, had this whole idea for like this expansive thing that would eventually then get heavy, kind of do the opposite where like it's clean for a long time, just kind of let people sit in this like sort of, mellow kind of thing, and then kind of explode on them and then pull it back. Cause I'm a big fan of tremolo. Like I just love the sound of like an old like 50s tremolo guitar. So I've always wanted to put tremolo on a Zaya record. We finally did it on this one a couple times. So that whole part kind of lived with that tremolo. And so we got out of that. And then when it comes into the like second portion of that song, like I said, it was a separate thing. And I wanted another like big, huge kind of just dark chorded weird stuff. So that comes in, and had the ideas I'm trying to, there was a specific band. I can't remember who I was listening to at the time, but I love like doing the big, super heavy chords idea with like the like sort of delayed out, kind of like picked out higher guitar parts. Like a lot of band, like Cult of Luna does that a lot, which is, I think they do it really well. A lot of like that, like sort of not doom, but like shoegazy heavy band kind of does that stuff. Like a lot of those types of bands do it. And I've always wanted to experiment with it with us, and kind of moving again where like I came up with that whole like sort of pretty interlude after Dan comes with his whole lyrical stuff. And then that whole like clean part was something I wrote. There's like 5 different guitar parts going on, and I worked so hard on and had all these little like intricate little sort of like bluesy solo parts and stuff like that. And so my daughter plays violin. She's been playing violin.
I was gonna say, I saw that in the liner notes.
Yeah. So she's been playing for like 4 years. And my wife came to me and she's like, is there any way you could think to have Sydney do anything on a record? And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, we'll do it sometime. I didn't think we'd do it for this. I was like, yeah, well, maybe we'll do it sometime, because, she's getting better and all that kind of stuff. And I got the like mixed version of that part of the song. And I'm listening to it. I'm just like, something seems like it's missing there. Like, even though there's like 8 freaking guitar parts, something feels like it could be there. It could be simple and it could totally tie in everything. And so I had my daughter come upstairs, and I'm literally like, here, I have a 2-note descending idea I want you to play. And I set up the microphone and recorded her here. And she did it in like 3 takes. And it was literally the most perfect thing. I sent it to Dave. Dave sent it to Jeff. And Jeff was like, that makes the song for me. That made the song for me. Because it is. And like, when you listen to that violin come in on that part, like all the guitar work, there's so much going on, and I love it all, and I listen to it. But my favorite part of the whole song is that violin part.
Well, and especially as a dad.
Like, of course, I'm like,
and I'm guessing she probably doesn't listen to Zayo regularly.
No, she actually makes fun of it.
But just the fact, like, your daughter is now on a Zayo record, that's got to be a pretty proud moment, especially when it's the thing that tied it all together.
Yeah, like, not only was she on a record, she did something that's like so integral to something that we did. Like,
right.
Like I said, Jeff like was floored when he heard it, and like both of us too. And it's funny because when Dave was mixing that song, he would send me like versions or whatever. So we're going through and listening to the mixes, and there was a couple of mixes he sent where the violin got turned down, and me and Jeff were both like, you better turn that up right now, dude, because like that's like super important. So but yeah, like it's such a perfect part. It ties that whole thing together for me. And yes, proud dad moment. But she still will make fun of like what is she used to call, I think she would do like kind of like the normal kid thing, like the rah 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 music.
Yeah.
That's all I am. So
what does she think about being on the record?
I think she's, how, well, she's like almost a teenager. She know how those teenagers are. She's like, yeah, it's cool, I guess. But she's like super stoked about it. I mean, I guess it's cool. I'm on a record, I guess. And it's funny too, because I was telling her, I was like, look, you know what I'm going to do? Like, so when we do records, since you played on the record, you get like, we're going to sign you up for BMI, and you're going to have like your own IPO, and like you're going to be in like all these other people that have recorded. It's like, I guess that's cool.
Never know what's going to open up.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe like this record will like. What would be my favorite thing ever is if like somehow in like alternative insane universe we get like a Grammy nomination, and
sure.
And we win it, and my daughter gets a Grammy when I get a Grammy, even though I've been doing this for like which I know awesome. That. But yeah, so that's cool.
That's cool.
Sorry about little dude barking.
Someone
Oh, dude, I like
made
that.
a knocking. Sounded like a knock on the door, so he lost his mind. So I apologize.
Well, we're going longer than I anticipated. I'm surprised one of my kids hasn't barged in here. So
It's all right. Ditto.
it's all good.
Ditto, same as well. So, but what's I guess the ironic part, not ironic, but the interesting part about her playing violin is this. I wrote this song for my kids. You know what I mean? So it's just like
incredible. Yep.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's a very bizarre tribute. The idea being like, outside of like, afterlife or heaven or whatever, if I could somehow write something where if something happened to me, it would be just like something I could say to them to comfort them. It's a really weird way to go about it, but that's pretty much what this song is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the beginning as if if I would die or like something would happen and I wouldn't mentally be, there anymore. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then the idea of the web of life and it's also the web, spider web, not necessarily the internet. I was
trying to figure out which web are you referring to, Dan?
Yeah, and isn't it weird? We live in a time where you're like a spider web, not like the internet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so this is a kind of creepy song about if you would picture it as like after you would die, just like scouring these like multi-dimensional webs, trying to find your way back to like your family. You know what I mean? So it's a bizarre concept, but there's like some sincere stuff said. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm just reading the lyrics here. If I were to unbind in body or in mind, let it not cause for sadness. I will never be gone, just difficult to find. I like that line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's a surreal concept, but it's also sincere in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean? And I guess partially because, like when you have kids, they're part of you. So I will be with you always. You know what I mean? Like, and the idea of in some weird, sincere way, like if something would happen to me and there is a way that I can like find, like come back. Do you know what I mean? There is some way I can like traverse the afterlife and like comfort you in any way. Like, you know what I mean? Like I will, you know what I mean? Like, and so it's a kind of a cryptically kind of like weird, but it's sincere. You know what I mean? I was just like, I guess that's something I think.
Just playing on that idea a little bit. Do you feel like any of your ancestors or something, like you've felt something that way, like receiving end, or?
I don't know. I think about that all the time. You know what I mean? Like, are there little things that maybe have happened that was like something like that, or, when you get there and you find yourself there, would maybe I have the ability to know something maybe they didn't, and then I could find my way back. You know what I mean? And then it just being like, and it'll trip me out because I'd imagine like, if my dad was in a band and like passed away and wrote this like weird cryptic thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like this bizarre, just like, because the other song that I wrote for the kids too was Gifts of Flower and Stone.
Okay.
That was on Pyrrhic Victory EP. So I've been starting to like want like every record or so like write some sort of I mean, it's weird because I feel like I'm not that creative, whatever, but I guess my biggest fear now in death isn't like death itself or like what happens after, but just like missing out on events in their lives or like being there, like, if something happens and they're looking for comfort or some way that's now my like weird kind of like fear of death. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily fear it itself. It's just like, but I fear not being able to like watch them like go through life and, grow and I don't look at myself as much, but, just as that figure in general, just being there if they, have a bad day or like are scared or something, So I was thinking about all that stuff and this song was just a weird response to all that. You know what I mean? Like hoping that, and then they might not ever listen to it or like it or whatever, but at least for me, it was like just an avenue to take and especially the song in and of itself just being this very long, kind of like pretty but like heavy and sad, you know what I mean? And that's why it's and it's a fan, you know, and that's if you look at it from that point, it's like family, like that's why it says like, you know, we are the web, long live the web, you know what I mean? It's just the idea of like we'll always be attached to each other in some way, like no matter what.
It branches out.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean you can get into weird stuff like dimensions and parallel timelines and things like that, you know what I mean, and following these things around and trying to you know, it's it kind of gives like Crow a tone, just being lost and like searching and finding, like, and if I can, I will find it, you know what I mean? And but also taking the stance of like I will, like, you know what I mean, like not like I'll try, but like, you know, I'll find you, like don't worry, you know what I mean? I feel like it's just like, so it's like a weird, you know, just kind of a weird kind of like cryptically bizarre, like but sincere, kind of like something you would write to like smaller kids, to like, you know, like in some weird metal way, like comfort them, you know, and you know, and I understand it's kind of like abstract and so on and so forth, but this is my biggest platform to leave some sort of impression that'll be around. You know what I mean? Like this, I don't have anything else where I can leave them some tangible recording that I would imagine you'll always have access to, especially now. You know what I mean? It's just like, so this was my, like, just using this platform to kind of make some sort of statement to them, and you know what I mean, in a very bizarre way, but that's, you know, you had to kind of, I had to do it in the way that it would work with this, you know what I mean? And not like I had some other idea that I shifted into this, but just like, you know, just say a few integral things and just kind of, you know, try to offer some sort of comfort, you know what I mean? And I got a couple years ago, a long story, but one of the things I do every day is like death meditations, which is simply like generally thinking like me, myself, or like any of these people that surround me that I care about. Like, you know, I've had, you know, we've all experienced a lot of loss, and it's, you know, then there's sudden loss, you know, where just people are just pulled out from under you. You get a phone call in the morning and some person you expected to see the next day is gone, and things like that. So the idea of like sitting down every day and thinking about that, and then trying to kind of like center yourself and come into the present and like be, you know, thankful for what you have and appreciative, and, you know, kind of letting that guide maybe your decisions to be sure that you can kind of like let, you know, and so this is just something I think about a lot, you know, not like a depressing, sad way, you know, but in a way to remind myself to like, yeah, make sure, you know, like, yeah, I'm tired, I'm on the couch and they're in the room, but, you know, you get up and say, you know, say goodnight and make sure to, you know, look them in the eyes and, you know what I mean? Like, tell them you care about them. Then, so this song was just born from that, you know, and it was just, like I said, this was my small platform to, you know, just kind of leave something, you know, and it's not even like I'll play it for them when the record comes out, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey man, maybe when you're a teenager one day, or you're like 26 and you're, you know, getting into music and you like to read lyrics and stuff, like here's something, you know what I mean, for you. Or worst case, if something happens, it's just like some bizarre, you know, like just like some bizarre thing that's there for them, where it's like Scott can call and be like, hey Steph, you know, if I get a chance one day, tell the kids that like there's a song, you know what I mean, or something like that, you know what I mean, it's little as that. So just some sort of like small thing for them, and then once again, like everything, it became its own thing and just kind of started writing, and, you know, developed the concept of the web, which there's one of my favorite philosophers is a guy named Alan Watts, and he has a long thing about the web of life, and that's where it all started. Okay. And the idea of like the universe is like in a, you know, a living organism, we're all connected, you know what I mean? And so that's where it started, with the idea of the web. And then, so I had this idea of like, I want to do something, you know, I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet, but I had this idea of like, I've been like working on a computer thing where I leave them like records to listen to and books to read, and like, you know what I mean? Like things like that, like just in case, you know, like some part of myself that way can't be diluted or messed up, or, you know what I mean? Like something where I can say, okay, this is me and this is what I'm saying. So this song was like an extension of that type of idea.
Yeah, I was thinking the on All Else Failed. You know, that's the longest Zayo song, but only if you count all that like rain and weird giggling at the end. So
And there's
excluding that, this is the longest Zayo song, and I think guys are going to be excited about it. 10+ minute song.
Oh
the greatest part of that the All Else Failed re-recording is if you listen to the last song, there's that endless rain. If you're patient, and you listen the whole way through. At some point, you hear someone get struck by lightning.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, you hear lightning, and someone goes, "Ah!" That was like me and Jesse's one thing. Do you remember that, Scott?
I do.
It was the best. Yeah, the whole payoff of the record is if you listen to the long part, and eventually there's thunder, and there's a few whatever, and then you hear someone get struck by lightning.
Yeah, and then after that, it's like people clapping or something, right?
Yep. Yeah,
it's like after you get struck by lightning, people are like, yeah. So that was like the highlight. That literally the end of that weirdness was like my favorite part of that whole record. But that's because it's the only thing that was like we were able to actually like do some create
funny stuff. Yeah.
But so if you ever listen to that again, if you ever listen to the re-recording of All Else Failed, keep your ears peeled for the man getting struck by lightning. He goes like, oh, it's great. It's like, and they were all just like, I think off like sample CDs. You know what I mean?
It was like cheesy.
Back in the day, you could buy like a 10-pack of CDs, and it'd be like bowling pins, car tires screeching, gunshot. You know what I mean? It'd be like lightning, guy yelling. You know. So I think we were just in the studio like ripping tracks off. I think Barry had some sort of like 101 sounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's what it was.
So
that's right.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this album, guys, I'm thrilled. I'm so honored to do this. I wrote it in the review. I think We're Blood and Fire and Liberate will always be my favorites just because it has that nostalgia attached to it. But excluding the nostalgia, I think this is my favorite Zayo record. I mean, this is phenomenal, and I'm not just saying it. So you guys,
that's awesome, dude.
Great job, and I love how different it is, yet it's still what you'd expect from Zayo. So you guys are staying true to whatever Zayo is, but yet exploring all these options, and you made a great record.
Dude, thank you so much. Yeah.
And
that means so much.
I feel like this was a long time coming, and we put a lot of work into it. It wasn't like, we finally wrote some good, you know what I mean? I was like, personally, like I said, everything from like the ambience underneath to, like I said, a lot of songs were older and just waiting for the right home. People think that like leave something off a record, it's just like it's because it's not good. But I feel like, especially since Virus, it's been like every song like feeling like they're together, and like the order has been very important. It's like, and I think that's like if you want to get into like songwriting and like not like maturing as like musicians or whatever, it's just like getting into that type of stuff, like making albums, and not just like. Like, that doesn't work together, but these songs are good. It's like, so, and, I don't think these songs could have been what they were if they were done, if they would have been, so, but.
No, I agree.
But man, I'm glad you like it, and I hope people like it. It's, I don't know. I definitely, and like you're saying, it's very cinematic. I feel like it takes you for a ride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, in the sense of whatever. And, I don't know.
Awesome.
Let's hope. Sorry.
Scott, any last tidbits or thoughts? Or
no, man. I think Dan kind of nails it. We worked super, super hard. This was the writing process for things we do now. Like, we work really, really hard. We work really hard on getting everything to sound right. I mean, we work hard on every aspect with writing it, and all the work going into like releasing it. Every decision's made by the band. Even down to like Jeff, picking up the records from the plant, and then we get it, everything is so just, I mean, it sucks because when you're a younger band, you need a lot of help, but like we have enough people that care, which we are so indebted to, that we are now able to just do this on our own. And it's so rewarding to be able to be kind of involved and in charge of all of it. It's so rewarding. So
yeah, and I think this is a perfect example. This is the byproduct of all those things.
Yeah.
You know, not having to like appease a label with
Yep.
like, how you're writing or worrying about all these things, and just being able to take your time. And
Yep.
another thing Jeff does very well is just like keep like social media stuff, you know, keeping people like engaged even in between when down times and things like that when nothing else is really going on, and just kind of like keeping, you know, like keeping your name in the front of people's minds and things like that, primarily because you just want to listen to your music, you know what I mean, above all. I mean, it's the main thing. But yeah, and even to record at the pace we went, and you know what I mean, like so yeah, I think all that, and so everyone's support helped us to do probably the Zayo record that had the most time and energy and kind of thought put into it to date. So yeah, and so that's what I mean. We're thankful. That's why I'm actually, it's for the first time I'm like super, I just can't wait for it to get out. I just want to see what people think about it. And I know it's different.
I'm already going to say they're going to love it.
Hopefully. Yeah, dude. Well,
yeah, and then like even super picky on vocal takes and diction and all those things. Do you know what I mean? Like on my end of things, and like there's songs I ended up, there's like, you know, what you're hearing is like the 5th or 6th version of like, you know, not only like the lyrics, but the phrasing and things like that. And just kind of like, I guess, holding ourselves to a higher standard maybe is a good, you know what I mean, way to put it. Just like, it's accepting like everything, just, you know, I don't know. So I'm glad you like it though, man.
Well, I got a project for you guys to be working on the next couple of years, because what is it, 2023 will be 30 years of Zayo.
Oh man.
Are you gonna do anything like Living Sacrifice is doing right now, the DVD? Or
we should, I mean, dude, we actually talked about doing like a little kind of, I mean, we did an exhaustive DVD with, but I mean, it was
well, great. Right, but that's so long ago now. Like,
so like what we need to do, like, especially, I think it's super interesting, like how everything works now and how we do the band, and like even with like being older guys and how we do everything on our own. Like, I think that would be kind of interesting. So we've talked about doing some kind of little thing where we talk about like from, you know, when we kind of built back up to now. So yeah, I think we could do it.
You got a couple of years. I think it'd be
we'll do it.
So, well, guys, thank you so much.
No, it's our pleasure.
3 hours now. That's amazing that you guys are willing to do it that long. But
totally sorry about the phone charge issues.
No, you're good. And like I said, I feel so honored to be able to do this. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, our pleasure, man. Thank you so much for asking.
You did a good interview. I mean, when 3 hours go by pretty quick, you know. It's a good
I'm not a very good interviewer, but I just thought if we kick back and chat, it'll go fine.
No.
So
that was great.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Keep in touch.
I did. We will for sure.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.